OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
It's playoff day, it's finally here. We've been waiting a very long time to see what Ireland were going to do against Slovakia in the first of, hopefully, what is 2 playoffs for an opportunity for us to play in the Euros. Some of the games of which might end up being played here in Ireland, in Dublin, if if everything falls our way. We're going to be talking about this all morning, and we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. We'll hear from Vinny Perth a little bit later on. We'll talk with our own Phil Egan and Nathan Murphy as well, and we're going to be reflecting your views. You can leave a comment on the YouTube channel as well if you want to. Fermanagh are the latest county to suspend all GAA action. We're going to get the thoughts of their senior manager, Ryan McMenamin, just 11 days out from the start of their league campaign. Bríd Stack is making a comeback, one of the most decorated Gaelic footballers of all time. She's joining the Sydney Giants. She's going to join the show a little bit later on this morning. It's a massive move for her and her family. We're also going to round things off, as I said, previewing the game. And we'll have the latest news as COVID-19 continues to impact the sporting world. First, though, sit back, relax and enjoy Jamie Heaslip in conversation with Joe Malloy.
The 25 games in the Pro 14, when you lose against Saracens, that can be spun around as almost an indictment of the Pro 14, and the question was raised as to whether it's fit for purpose in the sense of preparing a Leinster team to go up against the higher echelons of European rugby. Your sense of the Pro 14 and what it's doing or not doing for Leinster at the moment?
I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that, if I'm honest, Joe, because it is what it is, right? It's the league that they play in. I mean, they can't really do anything about it. I think the addition of South African sides would definitely help in terms of having bigger sides in the in that league. But I mean, it's like the Premiership played in different style. France has played in a different way. It's a hard one. Some years people say the Pro 14 is great. Some they give out about it. Some years they say it's great. Other years, I mean, I think it all depends on how it falls for the opposition league. You know what I mean? And look, they're set up differently as well, right? Here in Ireland, we're essentially contracted, so everything's geared towards the national side and operated in that way. While in England, and France, the clubs own the player, so it's their prerogative to keep putting them out and out. So they just, it's not our fault that it's tiered in such a way as, Europe, you have your Pro 14 into Europe, into international, and the IRFU definitely tier it in that way in terms of the exposure of players to the amount, to the volume of games they play. While in England, it's just, you're not playing in a Six Nations game. It's not like you get a weekend off. You're back and you're playing with your club.
Keith, Munster at the weekend, I know you watched the game, they were down by, 14 points with 11 minutes to go and came back brilliantly, and Ben Healy came on and kicked, and I want to ask you about him. Can I put a few points Donal Lenihan made in the Irish Examiner to you first, though, and get your overall thoughts on Munster thus far in the season? He was frustrated, frankly, and felt they were playing within themselves, was not happy with the style of rugby, felt it was predictable, and no width in the game. He talked about, this midfield partnership they have now. He mentioned Chris Farrell, who scored a try in the 68th minute. That was the first time that Farrell had touched the ball in that entire half, and effectively just felt there's so much more in the group than he was seeing. And he said of Craig Casey, to see him box kick from Munster line out on the Scarlets 22, 10 minutes into the game is proof positive that the Munster Nines are playing to instruction. And it just ties into that overall question. Is Larkham getting his hands on this team at the moment? What did you make of the game and the performance?
I would echo that entirely, and there were frustrations I had. That kick on the 22 is a bad kick. Actually, you don't kick it up into the air, because if someone catches it, they have a mark and you can kick it out. So we used to never play with kicking in the 22, but actually if you kick it along the ground, which Leinster have been doing since the return in England did in the last couple of matches against Ireland, they can really turn a defensive line. It can be very, very effective. Box kicking on the 22 I don't like. To be honest, Casey kicked an awful lot in the first 10 minutes. I think 6 or 7 times the first 10 minutes of the game. So that's frustrating, because I'm excited by him. I'm excited by the fact that he gets to the ruck and flings the ball. There's a couple of things I'd say. It was a great win because it's a win away from home against the Scarlets team that's pretty heavily laden with Welsh players. And I think they played a game to get the win, though their getting of the win went entirely against the odds with 10 minutes to go. So I think they'll be happy with the win at the end of it. I equally imagine that they'd be frustrated with it. For me, I am frustrated that the forwards are still standing when they catch the ball, and I also understand that if you get too far over the gain line, you can be incredibly exposed at the moment. So, we need to see Munster make a change where their big guys are running onto the ball with another guy ready to clear out the guy immediately afterwards. They have to start working in twos. There can be nobody on their own, because all the really good poachers are doing huge damage since lockdown. Dialende and Farrell, for me, I'm frustrated because Farrell's try was magic, because he got a ball passed flat and it was low, it was dipping low, but he didn't run onto it, but only by the dint of his ability to move his feet on contact and the fact that he's a giant of a man, he stretched over to score. It's a great try, but we have huge guys. You'd like to see the 10 take the ball at pace on the line, pull it to a centre, and they're all afraid of what Dialende will do if he's coming from depth. All the centres will be geared up to tackle him, and they'll tackle him. But in the tackle, you're going to knock him over the gain line. And we haven't done that yet. And we do need to do it, because that's where the momentum comes from. Momentum doesn't come from forwards or backs from standing starts going over the gain line. So, look, do you know what? I didn't watch it live, and I'm glad I didn't watch it live, because there was 60 minutes. Though, when I went back in it and I read all the newspapers on it, the first half was more even. Some of the scrummaging was pretty decent. I thought the two props actually played very well in the first half. I am frustrated as well with the referee's interpretation of some of the rucks, and on both sides, by the way, not just from a Munster perspective. And I will say there was one in particular where Farrell came out of the line to make a hit. It was a cracking tackle, and he then put his hands on the ground because he was going to fall over the guy because your man crumpled. Now, for me, that's an entire lack of feel from the referee to say that that's a penalty. What else could he do? If he fell on the ground, it's a penalty for falling down. He held himself up. There's elements in that law, and I'd really Jamie was very good at this stuff. I'd like to hear his thoughts on it, but that interpretation of it makes it incredibly difficult for a player to do the right thing in certain circumstances.
Do you want to come in on that, Jamie?
Well, on the rule, look, I mean, yeah, they're trying to speed up the rucks, right? And they're trying to figure out how they do it. I would echo Woody's and a lot of people's frustration around probably I don't know if it's inconsistency or they're kind of, I don't know who they're trying to impress. I mean, maybe they have to get a certain amount of penalties, it seems, around the ruck, and they're being judged on that. I think there is a frustration. There's a learning curve. I think hopefully it will start to level out as feedback comes in. But a little bit coming back a little bit to what he was talking about in terms of frustrations around Munster. You're gonna laugh at this. I'm frustrated seeing them play the way they are playing, because they have so much ability, particularly that centre partnership, which is unbelievably exciting to watch. But they're not being given the ball enough. And I don't know if it's down to do they have the ability to get it to them, or it's the game plan. This is the part that I just can't wrap my head around. I do know that in terms of the running, it's too predictable. And in the forwards, they're running directly into guys. Defensive systems are too good now to deal with just straight on runners. Very little footwork, and that doesn't help. It doesn't help Munster be able to build that momentum, build that quick ball that can let those centres cause havoc.
And how difficult is it to become a bit more unpredictable?
It's a good question. Something that you should ask a coach, Joe. But in terms of, you got to look at how they're training and what the game plan is. And I don't have insight into that.
Yeah. How would you sum up if you were to sum up their general game plan in a line or two?
It's too predictable.
Yeah, but what are they trying to do? Is it just box kick the leather off the ball and
I think they're trying. Look, I think they're playing to. So I think the coaches are looking at them and they're going, okay, we've got this bunch of players. We're going to play a lot of territory. We're going to get into an arm wrestle and we're going to grind out wins. That's what I think they're trying to do. That'd be my take on it. I could be way off.
Sure.
But trying to do that arm wrestle game, once you come up against bigger sides, you come up against smarter sides. If you're just running straight into them all day, they're going to tackle you, put to the ground, and they're going to send one into the ruck, and then they're going to put 13 in the line and put 1 or 2 in the backfield. So you're going to end up like good sides against him are just putting the man to the ground because he's easy to tackle because he's not putting any footwork on. He's back ending the tackle. Everyone else in the defensive line, two in the backfield, and it becomes quite easy because they're not changing it up. But I think if they change it up, they use a bit of footwork, they use a bit of movement, they use that centre pairing more, they will change the point of attack and they'll start stretching defences maybe a little bit more.
And Keith, I asked this, it is early in the season, but you wonder what Stephen Larkham is doing there. He can't think this is his vision for rugby. He's working under a coach, obviously, but you wonder, has he been given enough influence?
I also think it's trying to get off to the right start or to finish at the end of it. I like the question you've asked is what's Munster's way of playing. I think it's very forward dominated and it has to deliver almost at 100%. But I actually think it's quite hard to get into the game. And if you kick the ball that often, I think not a lot of guys get into it very quickly. So, look, I also think it's he's not new into it, but he hasn't been in it that long. But I would like to see an awful lot more in it. I think we saw a little bit more when Ben Healy came on. He might know any better, which is kind of maybe good in this instance, in that he's raw and he is an awful lot of learning to do. But he was incredibly confident in even like he made 2 or 3 cock-ups as soon as he came on. It didn't affect his confidence. I mean, I love it. You love that from a 10. And he's going to have to learn an awful lot in how they managed to bring him in and to make him part of the setup more, because he was looking to kick to the corner. He was looking to kick to the post at different time. He was looking to make decisions. I think that's fantastic. I hate the idea that there is a discussion over what are we going to do next. You know, you want guys that are trying to lead on the field. And look, for me, it was great because I just saw him, you know, his run-up is not particularly manufactured. He can boot the leather off the ball himself. He can kick it fairly prodigious distances. And he didn't seem to doubt it for a second. So for me, that was a huge reaction. And, you know, I have to say, I thought the bench in many respects dug out that win. And I thought Munster used their bench really well. I thought Scarlets used their bench really badly. They took off their leaders off the field and they looked a little bit lost as soon as Munster got into it. So there's a fair element of luck involved in this too. But, look, I'd still go back and say I'm very happy with the fact that they got the win. But you want to see more, and you want to see what can this team do. You know, you want to see, like, I saw them really enjoy the end of it, but up until that period of time, they were pretty grumpy. You know, it was a very grumpy reaction. Peter O'Mahony getting sent off, you know, stupidly, and you know, so for me, I got excited to see the level of excitement at the end. Yeah. But to see that in the first 10 minutes, not wait for the last kick of the game.
Okay. Before we wrap things up then, so Andy Farrell is going to name a squad very soon. Jamie, in some respects, you know, loads of time has passed since the World Cup, and yet in Irish rugby terms, it's just a handful of games, really. You know, the Welsh game and then the game at Twickenham, and this is the first really sustained period Andy Farrell is going to get with the team, bar the early part of the Six Nations. To take the Munster theme, because it was used against Ireland at the World Cup, certainly, on the predictable spectrum, where are Ireland for you at the moment, based on the most recent kind of performances?
Oh God! When I think back to the Six Nations, I think they showed glimpses of actually kind of creating this two-sided attack. So by they were splitting the field around the, you know, if you looked at the width of the field around, you know, 70-30 split in the field, and having people like Jordan come up on the short side and having this kind of two first receiver approach, or Jordan would work hard and go out the backfield and they would create length in the line and basically testing these defensive sides and doing it as well by hitting front door people off the 10, or, you know, forward, pot of three forwards, carrying, bit of footwork, option to tip on or pull it out the back to the 10 and he can hit the centre pairing. So they showed that. And then it seemed like they pulled back. So I was very excited, but then I got concerned, if I'm honest.
Why would a team tend to pull back?
I don't know, Joe. I don't know. That's a question for Andy, and maybe I'm getting my perception of it is wrong. But my concern is that I don't know if we pick the players that we picked, that we will have the ability to play an expansive game. And that's the game I feel we need to play. I don't think we can get into an arm wrestle. And when it comes, that's what I think, you know, with Munster, are they able to play the game they want to play with the players that they're picking? And that's why I think it's going to be really interesting come Ireland's selection of who he starts picking for that squad, who he's going to give a chance to. There's a lot of new blood there that hasn't been capped, that's shown a lot of promise from all the provinces. And I think now is the window to do it, because you're coming into a 2-year mark coming out from World Cup. And I think it's the right time to potentially cull the squad a certain degree and start bringing that talent through so they have 10, 15, 20 caps.
So who are the players who have the talent to play that expansive game that you would like to see come in then?
Who would I like to see? To be honest, Joe, I haven't thought about it a whole lot more outside of Leinster. So I'll get absolutely caned once I start going on about Leinster players, and Woody will definitely get stuck into me on that point. But I'd like to see people like a James Lowe get picked. I'd like to see him get some game time. I'd like to see Caelan get a little bit more game time, if I'm honest, and challenge out the back row in general. We've got an abundance of talent all around the island, so we're kind of okay on that front. Just sharing it around, I think, is really what we need to see. Chris Farrell, I'd like to see him get a bit more game time. But again, the centres, like Bundy was amazing at the weekend. I think Bundy he's kicked on a level, if I'm honest. So that's going to be a headache. Gary Ringrose in the form of his life. Second row, Ryan Baird, I think needs to get capped as well. And I know I'm sure I've forgotten a couple of guys, but they're still in certain positions. I still think there's a step change between what we have and where everyone else is at. So I think from Mer to everyone else, there's still a big gap. I think with Sexto and everyone else, I think there's a big gap, and you could probably say the same between, you know, Healy and Kilcoyne and everyone else, and probably the same between Porter and Furlong and everyone else. So they'd be the worrying positions, but like we've plenty of talent coming through in the other ones. I would just like to see a bit of a change up.
Okay, and on the back row, by the way, so I mean, you can list off however many names. I mean, you start with Leinster and you go through the rest of the country, and it seems like we do have lots of back row talent. What about the sense that they lack whatever word you want to use, be it dog or niggle or nous? Dan Levy is cited as someone who does have it, but in general, is that Irish back row, I don't know what the phrase to use is really, but is it a too nice almost might be the best way of putting it for you?
I'm not following, Joe. What do you mean?
Brian O'Driscoll said a while back that he didn't feel the Irish back row had enough dog in it.
Okay. Maybe I just view the game very differently. Like, I think you, in terms of a headset or a mindset, you either want to be there or not. You want to be in the fight or you don't. And I don't know how you know, people show that. You know, some guys are more vocal than others. Some people just go about their job quietly and are quite effective that way. I don't know. I don't know what Brian means by that, right? So it's hard for me to comment on that. But
so you think that back row, it can go toe to toe? You know, the 4, 5, 6 players all in contention there. That's not an area of weakness for Ireland at all these days.
I think we picked the right back row. I think we will have a a back row that's very strong relative to other international back rows. However, I just hope we don't go the route of picking what we always did.
Okay, what's your back row ideal world?
God, Joe, you really put me on the spot here. Andy Farrell drinks in the same, well, when pubs are open, he drinks in the same pub as me down the road. So, like, come on, I need to go in and be able to have a pint with this man. I suppose ideal back row, look, if Levy's back, I start him all day.
Okay.
That's a bit harsh probably on Connors or Josh. I think I'm really liking Jack O'Donoghue, by the way. I think he's coming into his element more and more and more. I think he's just really athletic, and I would like him to actually get a bit more game time. And then I would probably I'd put probably Caelan at 8, and I'd put CJ at 6 if I was honest.
And we'd be happy to be locked and loaded and ready to go against any team with that.
I think we would be in a very good position, yeah. I mean, obviously a lot of tactics has to come into it, but yeah, I think we'd be in a good place.
Yeah. Keith, what are you looking at for then to round this off? We'll have plenty more time to talk to you over the next couple of weeks, obviously, but in broad terms, anything Jamie's saying there which jumped out to you?
Yeah, I was quite happy just to let him hang himself there.
Yeah, thanks, Woody.
I know, it's the quietest I've ever been. I do understand Brian's view on the dog idea, which is you need to be a nuisance on the field. There needs to be more edge to it. I think we have a huge amount of very athletic players that play really, really well, and at times we get bullied a little bit. And so if I was trying to describe it, the best guy that's around at the present moment in time now, he's class anyway, is Maratoje. So he is a fantastic athlete, but he is stuck in everybody's face all the time. He is it's on the edge all the time, and he is keeping it on the right side of the edge all the time. So for me, if you have that back row, I think it's a good back row, but you need the balance in the pack and a couple of guys in the backs as well. You need it needs to be. It's very hard to describe it. I mean, and like, I was listening to Jamie trying to not describe it almost, but it is. We are missing a little something, and I don't know quite what it is. And all I can say is from the Saracens game and the England game, we have been really, really good players have been second best. So something needs to be engendered to bring that to a higher level, and it could be. Niggle is the wrong word, actually, but we need to be more of a nuisance of ourselves.
I have a question, Woody. Do you think there's enough competition, or do you think guys feel too comfortable?
It depends what you mean by competition. You'll know for yourself, if you were fit, you'd expect to play every minute of every day. Did that diminish how you trained or how you played? No. So I don't think that's a competition issue. I would have felt the same myself. But I would have also taken the view that I had to prove it every single second I went out onto the field, both on the training field and on the match field. And I didn't always do it, but I tried to do it always. And that attitude is there. I don't know that that's the case, but if we look at big men that Leinster had, we don't have a Sean O'Brien who was a nuisance. If he carried the ball, he hurt you. So it doesn't even matter whether guys tackle you or don't tackle you. He was carrying it at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's just a hard thing to deal with. And the opposition, you're having to say, oh my God, no, here's Sean O'Brien again. And it's that idea of a guy. I don't know that that's a lack. Like, you couldn't say there's a lack of competition in the back row for Ireland in particular. That's extraordinary. I would say on your lists of tight heads, I think John Ryan showed on the weekend that he has something more. I don't know whether you like the look. I don't know if I like that look that you're giving on the radio, but I thought he showed an awful lot more. I still think Porter is young, and I think it takes a while for guys to get through. He'll learn an awful lot. I actually think wonderful things for Porter, but we want Porter for another 10 years. So it's trying to. There's always a couple of gnarly old guys in it. Our old guys aren't that gnarly. So, and we're saying that on the same weekend that Peter Manny got sent off for being too gnarly. So where's the balance? And so that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I'll give you last word then, Jamie, because I kind of led the witness a little bit in terms of asking you about predictable. And then
thanks, Joe.
I was curious for your thoughts on the back row, obviously, because it's an area that you've played in. But just, that was very interesting what you said at the initial point on two-sided attack, and you saw glimpses of that. So if you had to diagnose the ills of the Irish team over the last kind of year, and specifically what you want to see now in these next couple of games, be it in approach or selection or otherwise, I'll give you a final word. Sum up what you want to see.
Well, at this juncture, I want to see variety at this point, because, like I said, I mean, it's very easy for us to sit back and go, okay, we got to think in like World Cup cycles, right? You know, and when you're in the coach and you're in it, you probably feel like you know it's a hard balance to strike. You know, your short to medium term versus long term, right? But I think what a great window between the next two Six Nation games and the autumn series to bleed new players, try some new things, try some new combinations, and just change it up and have a bit of variety here, and don't go what you always have done, because you'll always get what you got.
Okay. Well, on that note, Jamie was with us, Focus Ireland, with the support of Board Gosh Energy. I'll give this a mention again. It's a brilliant cause. They are asking companies across the country, if you just tuned in, to contribute to Shine a Light Night 2020. It's on October 16th. Where are we in the world? October 16th. So one night to help raise much needed funds for homeless services in the country. We have 8,728 people currently homeless in Ireland. They're hoping to raise over €1 million. So if you want to get involved, you can have a virtual sleep out, your own homes, gardens, safe private spaces and so on. The place to go is shinealight.focusIreland.ie, and you can get all and any information. So Keith Wood, as ever, thank you. And Jamie Heaslip, we'll do it again sometime. Thanks very much.
Appreciate it, Joe. Thanks, man. Thanks, buddy.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. Off the ball.
For people to look at Roy Keane and say they're not going to take him because of what he might say as a pundit is ludicrous. It's ridiculous. How are you not going to have a player like that, a manager like that who's had the career he's had, and not try and tap into that to help your team? They're missing a trick. All of them who's not taking them, missing a trick.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1.
This is OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
The all-new OTB Sports app. It's all videos, sports news, live scores, interviews, podcasts, all waiting for you. Search OTB Sports on your app store and download now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
It's 7:59 this morning here on OTB AM. You're very welcome along. It's Ger and Eoin Sheahan with you on the day that Ireland plays Slovakia. A heavily depleted Slovakia, Eoin, which, you know, it's a terrible thing, but there was certainly, on my Twitter feed last night, a lot of excitement about the fact that COVID is ripping the heart out of Slovakia.
It's 3 years ago this week since Ireland played Wales in Cardiff, shorn of Gareth Bale. This is right up there in terms of a fluky way to give us a better chance in the game, and that is what it is. Like, we can be really nice and say it's a shame for Slovakia and we want everybody playing on the pitch, but if the first thing you thought when seeing that news was Ireland have a better chance, then I don't know what way your brain operates. Sure, it's terrible and it's not good for Slovakia, and it doesn't. It's a terrible harbinger of things that might come for European football, but the first thing that you think last night when you see it is we have a much better chance tonight, and that is the simple fact of the matter. Breaks are going to go some teams' ways over the next little while, and a massive break has gone Stephen Kenny's way in the last 24 hours.
Great stuff from Neil Reardon in today's Irish Sun. This tournament is threatening to turn into football's Fire Festival, is the drop quote. It's a qualification journey which has so far dragged on over the course of 2 years and a month, and will come to conclusion either this evening in Slovakia or in 5 weeks' time in Belfast or Sarajevo. I mean, John Bon Jovi might be terrified about playing in either Belfast or Sarajevo, given that two of the great war zones of the 20th century.
At least it's not English.
Well, I mean, you know, look, it's when you think about it, it's absolutely remarkable that Stephen Kenny is managing Ireland in the playoff for the Euros against a Slovakia team who have had half their team, well, not half their team, but two of their three best players unavailable because of the reason that he has the job in the first place.
Yeah, three of their four most recognisable players almost out of the team, because you've got to put in Dubravka there, obviously, beforehand. Then your star centre-back. His partner, like, if it was the other centre-back, you'd be thinking to yourself, oh, that's unlucky because, you know, he plays for Lazio and all that, but at least they've got the good one. They've literally taken the best centre-back. And then in midfield, you could say to yourself, they could possibly take any midfielder except for Lobotka, because on form and on what we've seen in recent seasons, he is their best midfielder. But he's gone now as well. It's not like, oh, there are two starters that have been taken out of the team. Your best defender and your best midfielder and your starting goalkeeper, all gone. You're right, it is a huge piece of fortune for Stephen Kenny ahead of this game, and that's what it is. And, like, does that then change how you approach a game? Does it heap a little bit more pressure on you? Maybe it does. Like, if anything, this just gives Ireland just a phenomenal chance of progressing.
Yeah, look, you look at Scotland. Kieran Tierney is out because he's a close contact of whichever player's name I've forgotten now, tested positive. And
Stuart Armstrong, isn't it?
Yeah, so they're missing three because there was the original test and the two close contacts, and it is a complete lottery at this point. And as Dan was making the point as well, what will the tournament actually look like? Will the tournament be played in multiple cities where you have the risk of the travel from different places, or will this tournament all be played in Portugal? Will this tournament all be played in Lisbon? Is that possible? Yeah. Or maybe it's all played in London because there are a multiplicity of venues and the final was due to be there anyway. So all of a sudden there are bubbles in Tottenham, Fulham, Arsenal, Wembley, and they're the four grounds that they pick, or maybe whatever they pick, right? There's an opportunity they could pick Stamford Bridge, whatever. Like, that's more likely than there being travel to here, a game in Bilbao, you know. So maybe we're not playing for the opportunity to have a tournament in Dublin. And maybe that's the whole point, that UEFA already knows this and they've made those contingency plans. Because let's face it, everybody needs a lot of contingency plans at the moment. Kieran Donaghy's in the back of the papers today as well, talking about the prospect of the game, the All-Ireland final being moved into next year. We have Ryan McMenamin with us a little bit later on to talk to us about the situation in Fermanagh. They're not currently training. They're due to start their league campaign in 11 days. You know, rules of quarantine in the north have always been a week to 10 days as opposed to the 14 days that we had, and even around that it's like, well, you know, what's the situation and how's that working, and is he even supposed to be travelling from Tyrone to Fermanagh? I don't know what their localised rules are. Maybe they're less along the county lines than we are, given the administration of you know, all that kind of stuff in the 6 counties is a bit different.
Yeah, like there is obviously going to get become a stage, I hope anyway, before next year's tournament where we will be back in a place where we were in July, where things seem okay again. Hopefully it's this side of Christmas, but we just don't know what. There's nothing inevitable, as Tony Houlihan was saying yesterday, about what happens next. But like, even just looking back at some of the case numbers in Portugal during the middle of the summer when the Champions League were going on, it was remarkably low. And that is one of the reasons why the bubble in Lisbon was so successful. It's because it happened in a city where there wasn't a massive spike in COVID cases. We just don't know what the curve is going to be doing come next summer. So the contingency plan needs to be in place. I would agree that London, of all the different cities around Europe, seems like the most suitable one in terms of logistics. The UK does not seem like the most suitable country in terms of COVID figures, though, and these are the two things you have to balance. And when will you be able to actually make a call on that? The answer is you can't. You won't be able to make a call on who's got the lowest COVID figures until the week, maybe 2 weeks before the tournament actually starts. So
you can't do that, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing. So maybe they actually need to look into, because like I would say that the bubble in Portugal was looser than, say, an NBA bubble. Like there needs to be like a proper biosphere created almost if they want to pull this off in a venue and have a venue picked 6 months in advance. But the idea of multiple venues at this point, it's fanciful.
I mean, Germany is always good at this kind of stuff, you know. Everything is well organised and scientifically thought out, and they have a track record of organising football tournaments brilliantly. So I would certainly be chatting to them and going, hey, you know, would you be able to bail us out here, and we will look favourably on things in the future. Maybe some refereeing decisions will go your way. I don't know. And we're just speculating here. We're just spitballing. I can see that's how the conversation goes. A little bit around that, and look, you know, I think the other thing is that we should say that Eli Lilly have made an application for their latest antibody test to go forward to open label testing. This is for people who have mild cases, and so far it's been better than people who've been taking the placebo. And so, like, things are trending in the right direction. So who knows? Maybe they make all these contingency plans, and then in March the vaccine arrives, and they're like, well, look, we're going to allow 30,000 people in if they've all been vaccinated, and if they can prove they've been vaccinated. Weird stuff is happening all the time, and you just have to hold out hope that some weird stuff, like, you know, like the eagles in The Lord of the Rings, that kind of level of weirdness has to happen here to save the Euros. Meanwhile, tonight, all of a sudden, the confidence levels should be surging, and yet Slovakia are still favourites.
Are they still favourites? Heavy favourites?
No, I think it's nearly a pick-em.
Right, okay. Like, it does make it just a huge difference when you've got two central figures outside of your goalkeeper missing. Like, I just can't see there being a situation where that midfield three, whatever way he goes for that midfield three, it'd be a surprise if it's not Hendrick, Hourahan and McCarthy, but they would look across the line. I'm wrong, sorry, the odds,
the
favourites now.
The odds printed in the paper were from before the news came through. So, Ireland, biggest price 17-10, Slovakia 2-1, and the draw 2-1. I mean, I think 0-0 draw, 1-1 draw. Then again, this could be a 7-4, couldn't it?
It could be. Like, I mean, the point I was going to make there is that our Ireland's midfield looking across at Slovakia's midfield and saying, you guys are old and well past it, and we should be well within our rights to actually crush you. Like, that is that the level of confidence that they'll be bringing to the pitch tonight? And like, a little bit of hyperbole there, obviously, but like, that would be a good thing. That would be a really good thing if Ireland are actually coming to the pitch thinking, right, those absences are working in our favour massively. Like, if they don't use that to their advantage, I think that's actually kind of like a waste of a little bit of a break. I think that going into this game tonight and actually thinking that they have a really good chance of beating Slovakia is the only way they're actually going to get this job done, because there has been a plight of a lack of confidence in Irish football for a while. And I know that has changed from the top down, from what Stephen Kenny's been saying. I don't think he's going to be the type of manager who is criticising his players openly or criticising their abilities. And ability-wise, you could probably make the case at this point now that on paper...
Oh, the line to Kerry's gone. Maybe the line to Monaghan's a little bit better. Is Sheahan there? Sheahan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ger. How are things?
I'm very good. What was your...
We've got Wi-Fi in Monaghan.
There you go. What was your natural human reaction last night when the news came through that Skriniar was out?
Absolutely delighted. Now, it doesn't feel good to be revelling in another country's disappointment, because I guess if this was happening to Ireland and we were missing a couple of our top players, we'd be inconsolable. And look, it's kind of used as an excuse either way after this match that Slovakia were missing a couple of their key men. But
I'll happily listen to those excuses.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not massively confident. I think Ireland's playoff record overall is three wins out of 9, so it doesn't bear fantastic reading, but still you have to have a little bit of confidence heading into this match. And those, as you said, those absentees for Slovakia are huge. It's not just bit part players who are squad players, they're starting players who are missing this match. So, I mean, everything is heading in our favour. We have to win this match now.
When this campaign started, Mick McCarthy was our manager, and it was a long time ago. I mean, metaphorically and at this point, quite literally as well. So, go on.
Like, just it is. You're right. It is a long time ago, and I mean, there has been a few months where, say, Marek Hamšík hasn't been playing at an extremely high level. But conversely, there has been a run now where Irish players have been playing at a high level. I think you would have bitten somebody's hand off if they had given you a front six that were playing regularly in the Premier League and playing well in the Premier League, and that's exactly what we'll have taken to the field tonight.
Yeah, ideally, it would have been Conor Hourahan scoring at the weekend for Villa against Liverpool. But look, you can't have everything. Apart from that, we have almost everything. Everybody else is in a better scenario at club level than they were, essentially, when this was all happening. McGoldrick is scoring in the Premier League, which he hadn't done for ages. Connolly is starting. We have the choice of somebody who is playing and scoring goals in the Premier League, who might only be on the bench tonight, which seems kind of ridiculous to me. But anyway, so that is the case. What else is going on, Shane?
Yeah, I'm going to make the call as well, lads. Aaron Connolly's going to score his first international goal tonight. So you heard it here first. Aaron Connolly will score his first international goal tonight. That's my big call of the evening.
You'll hear it live on Off the Ball. Nathan Murphy on commentary duty from 7 o'clock tonight with Joe on the OTB Sports app, and of course also on News Talk on Off the Ball.
Yeah, we'll start with that game. The biggest night in Stephen Kenny's managerial career has taken him to Bratislava to face Slovakia tonight in that playoff semi-final. The hosts have been shorn, as we've mentioned, of a number of first-choice players. Goalkeeper Martin Dubravka, defender Milan Skriniar, and midfielder Stanislav Lobotka are all missing. Kenny says Ireland can't be concerned about that.
We're just focusing on our own performance, really. I think it's very important that we play well ourselves, regardless. And I think that's our main focus going into this game. Very important for ourselves to create high standards for ourselves and to try and put in a very, very strong performance.
Meanwhile, Matt Doherty says Irish preparations have gone perfectly.
Obviously, we need to kind of, when the whistle goes tomorrow, that needs to be the case. We all still need to have the confidence and the right mindset to want to play and take risks in good areas for opportunities for us to score and create chances. Everybody needs to know that it's going to be tough as well, and everyone's going to need to kind of dig in and put shift in defensively and offensively.
Kick-off in that game is at 7:45 p.m. this evening, and as Ger mentioned, live commentary for you on Off the Ball. The winners of that match will play the winners of tonight's other semi-final in Sarajevo, where Bosnia-Herzegovina face Northern Ireland. Scotland go into their semi-final with Israel without Kieran Tierney, Ryan Christie and Stuart Armstrong. Armstrong has contracted COVID-19, while Tierney and Christie were close contacts. England could be without Tammy Abraham, Jadon Sancho and Ben Chilwell for their Nations League game with Belgium on Sunday. The trio will definitely miss the friendly with Wales tonight as they undergo coronavirus checks. Having attended a party of more than 6 people against government guidelines, England manager Gareth Southgate says they can't take any chances.
They're all in consideration for later in the week. We just have to track what happens and make sure that we're, as I said, protecting the whole group, really. That's key because we have a unique bubble where you're bringing everybody from different environments.
Last night, Chelsea's Olivier Giroud became France's second highest goal scorer of all time, surpassing Michel Platini in a friendly hammering of Ukraine.
That's mad.
Giroud scored twice in the
Isn't it?
Yeah,
it's crazy,
that's
isn't
mad.
it?
Like, really, of all the strikers that France have had, Giroud is second. Is it Thierry Henry first?
No,
It's Thierry Henry first. He's He's overtaken Platini into second, so Henry is on. Henry's 9 ahead of him, so Giroud's now in 42, but Henry I think is on 51.
Like, Just Fontaine scored 13 goals in a single World Cup tournament. This is ridiculous. Giroud.
Antoine Griezmann is also top 5.
I suppose Giroud's a World Cup winner. I mean, that's also ludicrous. Kylian Mbappe better get his shooting boots on quick.
It's all the tomato cans, isn't it?
It is.
Like I don't want to completely. I haven't watched all of Olivier Giroud's international games, but that's the first thing that strikes me when I see someone like him second all time in that list.
Yeah, pretty incredible. You can't take this record away. This second record away from him. It was his 100th appearance for France last night, Giroud, and he's 42 goals in that time.
It's
so
not bad.
A serious strike record at international level.
Well, it's actually his strike rate is slightly ahead of Thierry Henry. Thierry Henry's 123 caps and 51 goals. Just Fontaine, let me tell you this: 30 goals. How many games do you think it took him to score 30 goals?
Fontaine.
55.
Yeah, mid-50s. Yeah.
21.
Jeez.
A goal and a half a game almost.
It's not bad, is it?
That's not bad.
I'm trying to get a list up here of like Giroud's list of international goals, and I'm sure I'm going to be put right back in my place when he
14 against Liechtenstein.
Yeah, I can just feel myself walking into like a complete hole here when he's actually scored against top tier countries all along, and we just haven't been watching France play football.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Giroud, he's 34 years old, so can he catch Thierry Henry? He's 9 behind. So who knows? He could get it. He could be France's all-time leading scorer within the next few years. We will see.
First and second international goals were against Germany and Spain, so that is me immediately put back my place. But then you've got Georgia, Australia, Norway, Jamaica in there. A couple against Denmark, Germany again, Netherlands. You've got Scotland, Romania, Iceland, Italy in there.
Okay, this is great radio.
All I'm saying is that I've done a U-turn. He's goals, good teams.
This is up there with that time ages ago where you fixed the debate about who was better, LeBron or Jordan. That was amazing as well.
It was.
Definitive. But it was a 7-1 win for France in that game against Ukraine. The defeat for Ukraine, by the way, the worst in their history, with the side now managed by former AC Milan Chelsea striker Andrei Shevchenko, so not a good game for him last night. Elsewhere, Turkey scored an injury time equaliser to clinch a 3-3 draw against Germany in a friendly thriller last night in Cologne. Chelsea's Kai Havertz was very, very good in that game by all accounts. Some rugby news. Andy Farrell due to name his Ireland squad for the remaining Six Nations games today. Ulster scrum half John Cooney is among those who are rumoured to be disappointed by Farrell's selection. Ireland play Italy at the Aviva Stadium on the 24th of this month before a Halloween date with France in Paris. Ulster will carry out another round of coronavirus tests today. One senior player and one academy player are self-isolating, having tested positive for COVID-19. Ulster are due to be away to the Ospreys in the Pro 14 on Saturday. Shane Lowry, Padraig Harrington and Graham McDowell are in the field for the European Tour's flagship event. So many Irish to choose from there. The BMW PGA Championship, which started at Wedworth this morning. Harrington teed off at 7:45. He bogeyed his first hole, unfortunately. McDowell out at 8:15, just around now. And Lowry beginning his round at 12:15 noon. Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Rose and 2018 Masters winner Patrick Reed are among the field headliners, while Danny Willett is the defending champion. And some tennis finally from me this morning, lads. It's women's semi-finals day at the French Open. First up, Polish teenager Iga Swiatek faces Argentine qualifier Nadia Podoroska. That's followed by the meeting of 4th seed Sofia Kenin and 7th seed Petra Kvitova. None of today's combatants have ever reached the final at Roland Garros. Novak Djokovic progressed to the men's semi-finals last night, beating Pablo Carreño Busta in 4 sets. The top seed will play Stefanos Tsitsipas tomorrow.
Shane, give us your prediction.
For tonight, I'm going to go with a 2-1 Ireland.
Right.
Aaron Connolly will be on the score sheet.
Okay, so you've said Aaron Connolly's going to score. Is this going to be a 90-minute job, or will it be, deep into stoppage time at the end of extra time?
90 minutes. I think Ireland are going to score early within the first 15-20.
We had a well-established tendency of scoring in the first 10 minutes under Trapp. It was like, what's going on here? These 10 minutes are for settling in, Trapp. Have you not watched Irish football apart from that one time against England? Other than that, we always score late. That's just the way it is. Keep everybody sweating. And are you expecting a good quality performance, or does that matter to you, Shane?
I really do not care. I don't care if the ball smacks off Shane Duffy's forehead twice and goes in, but whatever way it happens, it happens. I mean, I don't think any Irish person, we all like to brag and say, oh, yeah, it'd be great to have a good performance. We're not Spain. We're not Italy. We're not Brazil. We're the Republic of Ireland. And if we can scrape into a qualifier, hopefully with the North. I'd love to see a game up in Belfast, albeit there won't be any fans at it, but it would be nice to see the North of Ireland play out a putrid performance to see who can qualify for the Euros.
I'm not sure about that. I kind of feel like an L game against Bosnia would be much better for everything, just for, all sorts of reasons. A game in Sarajevo better than a game in Belfast. That's my take on that.
Yeah, well, either way it'll be interesting. We've played Bosnia recently in a playoff as well, so at least we have priors there, and it went quite well, I think. So, the North will be interesting, but I don't care who we play as long as we qualify for the Euros, and hopefully the Euros go ahead.
Well, I think the Euros will go ahead. I think I'd be very surprised if top level sport at that level, particularly when it's a TV and sponsorship model that is going to work for UEFA. Obviously, everybody would have made extra money from fans and bums on seats, but I think the fact that we've seen football relatively successfully get back being played behind closed doors means that those Euros will go ahead. They can't postpone them again. This was their tiny little window of opportunity here. So, if you want to get in touch this morning, 0879 180 180 is the number. A reminder, OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Oh, and is the team you would pick different from Stephen Kenny's team?
I'm not sure. If we think that Callum O'Dowda is going to start tonight, then yes, my team is different. I think Callum Robinson should start on the right of David McGoldrick, who would be astonished if he doesn't get back into the team tonight, and Aaron Connolly on the left. Similarly, I would be extremely surprised if he doesn't start. So in terms of the attack, it's O'Dowda versus Callum Robinson. I would be picking Callum Robinson in midfield then. I think injuries have almost dictated that it has to be McCarthy, Howerton and Hendrick. Like, I think with obviously Harry Arter being injured, Robbie Brady not being fully fit, potentially, that probably limits your options in midfield, unless the Jason Malumbi love goes a lot deeper than we think.
Yeah, it's too early for Malumbi, isn't it? So the Dan's probable lineup in the Indo today is Connolly, McGoldrick and Robinson starting. And obviously the rest of it is, as you said, Hara and McCarthy, Hendrick, Stevens, Egan, Duffy, Doherty and Randolph.
I actually think this is, Stephen Kenny will have a different opinion on it. I think this is actually the most straightforward Ireland team to be picked in a long, long time, given the injuries, given the form, it is a very straightforward 11 to pick.
Okay.
And like whether or not he'll go for that remains to be seen.
Okay. We're on air tonight from 7 o'clock for Slovakia against the Republic of Ireland. Live commentary of Ireland's playoff with Nathan Murphy and Stewie Byrne on commentary duty for that one. And we also have Ireland against Wales on Sunday. Coverage starts at 1 on Off the Ball and News Talk. Nathan Murphy and Stewie Byrne will bring you the match from 2 o'clock there. And as I've said, we'd love to hear from you this morning. What team do you want to see Ireland play with tonight? And ultimately, how much do you care about the quality of the performance? This is do or die. It's knockout football. It's big time cup and it's under the lights. Vinny Perth is with us. I'll tell you what's coming up a little bit later on. We've got Ryan McMenamin. We've got Bríd Stack talking about her move to Australia, and we're going to talk about the game in more detail with Phil and Nathan. But Vinny Perth, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Morning. How are we doing this morning?
Everybody's a little bit anxious, I think, Vinny. This is very early on in Stephen Kenny's managerial career, but this is the big time.
It is. It's big time football. We obviously have the last 2 games, and there was a lot of questions after them. But this is what matters. 2 big games to qualify for the Euros, and they're both away as well. So really difficult start. But the mood out of camp seems very positive from what we're hearing. So touch wood, things go our way tonight.
We've seen loads of different teams deal with football coming back after the lockdown in different ways. Ireland looked a little bit lacklustre in those first 2 games. Players who you would trust to be at it just weren't at it. And in the meantime, they've gone back and they've had this kind of elixir of regular football. They've started to play well at club level. What kind of difference do you think that's going to make to what we should expect from them and what they expect from themselves tonight?
I think it's completely different now. I think there was a complete and utter lack of fitness, and not people outside will say how these full-time athletes not fit, but there's a sharpness. It's completely different. There was a change of style as well in what the players were being asked to do. So all of them things sort of came together, and there were some questions that came out. Do Ireland look like they don't have a number 10 at the moment? So it's funny, we had someone like Wes Houlihan for many years, and we never played a style that really suited him. So I understood why he wasn't in the team too much. But now that we play that style, we're crying out for a sort of number 10 in that position. So all of these things, players have gone back to their clubs and got games. There's been a couple of things like Matt Doherty was left out the other day, or Egan got suspended, but by and large a lot of our players, or the first team players, got games at a really high level. So I think Ireland are going into this and the players will be going into it really confident. The sound bites from them is really confident. When you hear, I think it was O'Dowda, Robinson, Doherty all done interviews this week, and it was really remarkable how buoyant they seem as a group.
Yeah, I mean, for Robinson, he must be feeling great about life. In the Premier League, on merit, at a club who really want him there, who have trusted him to play through the middle. Talk to us a little bit about the absence of a number 10, will you? What impact does that have, and is that important in terms of what Stephen Kenny's actually trying to do?
Well, albeit I do speak to Stephen, I haven't spoken too much around the team, or almost nothing over the last number of weeks. The conversation we had was more about how family were that, because we were so close for so long. Haven't seen a lot in 7 months. I don't think I've met him in person, so because of COVID, etc. So I don't have an insight other than what I see with my own eyes and knowing him as a person for so long. But the number 10 position, when you play, like, if you remember in the 2 games, we played 4-3-3, and it was a very high front three of Connolly, Ida, and O'Dowda or Robinson, and that left us a little bit exposed in midfield. And I would imagine if Stephen had his way, he would like a number 10 in that position, and play sort of 4-2-3-1 type of a shape. We don't have a number 10, so the number 10 is the player that makes you play. He's the one that links things together. He's the one that gets close to the striker at times and occupies the opposition number 6, because the way the game is played now, so many teams play through a number 6 and they like this passing style. So your number 10, modern day number 10, has to do a lot of work for the team. So when we look at Ireland, you think, who can do that job? And there isn't loads of standout candidates. I suppose Robbie Brady looks like he could do it if they wanted. Hendrick could do it. He does it. That's probably his natural game. How good both of them are in the 10, I'm not too sure. I even seen Nottingham Forest play a couple of weeks ago, and Harry Arter played in that position. But we don't have that flair player who's going to be a brilliant number 10. So that's the sort of conundrum that they're left with. I'm sure the staff would have come away from them first 2 games going, there's issues we've got to fix. It wasn't all just down to fitness and sharpness. We looked very, very open, particularly with the 2 fullbacks we have. We want to get them on, and that should be encouraged. But it does leave a certain amount of holes behind you in the transition. So the 10 is crucial, but the what comes behind it at that midfield, people will say teams play 4-3-3. But there is subtle difference between 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3, and they can leave you very open. So, and we don't have a huge amount of time to fix that in this camp. But at the same time, it has to be fixed. I think the midfield battle tonight is crucial. It's crucial. I think their best player, Hamsik, plays in midfield in that sort of 10 position. So we've got to be careful, and I'm sure they've done a lot of work around that.
It's interesting that you're bringing up the number 10, because definitely it seemed in the first game under Stephen Kenny that if anything we were lacking a bit at the other end of midfield, that James McCarthy on his own perhaps was a little bit exposed. So is there a way that we can turn the lack of number 10 into a positive at the other end of the midfield, or do you actually see it the other way entirely, that the 10 would help out defensively?
And I suppose, yeah, we were open, and that's a fair point. But again, it's about getting that balance right in midfield. So that's why I'm saying modern day number 10 would do a huge amount of running. So Ireland are going to press. They can press with their front 3. And that's suited at times if you play against a back 3. But we did press, and we created a few chances in the games from our press. So your front 3 can press, but your number 10 ultimately in his job is huge, and his running power. There's times where so if you use an example of instead of numbers, if you use Robbie Brady as a 10, Hendrick as an 8, and James McCarthy as the 6, which he could go with. There's times where Hendrick will go and have a shot, or will join in on an attack, and every so often someone like Robbie Brady's going to have to make a recovery run for him, and that's why it's not necessarily a centre forward in the old Sheringham role that people use them. It has to be someone who's going to be disciplined. And again, it goes back to what I said, and you make the point, the transition from attack to defence is so crucial at the highest level that if you're not structurally set up correctly, then you will get punished. So it is important that balance is found. So listen, I think McCarthy is an outstanding footballer. I think he has got what it takes to play as Ireland's number 6. He's probably our best option. I'll put it that way, and them sort of games he's got in the Premiership will definitely stand to him. I think we'll get a much improved performance from him tonight, but he's going to need a hand with him. And like I said, you'd probably need a tactics board for, but if you're going to get your 2 fullbacks high, almost, if you think about it, their starting position at times is level with McCarthy, then you need somebody probably a little bit closer to him, and that's why I feel a 10 would be important to this team if they're going to play that way.
Can I just talk about McCarthy then? Because the best game he's played for Ireland, everybody always goes back to the Germany game, and the best games that he plays for Crystal Palace is with somebody alongside him as well. And it is a 2-man old school midfield where he's got a partner in crime effectively doing a similar job to him. And traditionally 4-2-3-1 wouldn't be like that, so it's 2 6s as opposed to a 6 and an 8. Yeah. Could you ever see Ireland playing like that?
Yeah, I think that probably suits us because, again, I mean, when you look at our players, I don't think it's going to happen tonight, but when you look at our players, you could argue that a lot of our players are suited to a back 3 or 2 wing backs, Doherty going forward and the Stevens. But yeah, I think Ireland could play with a 4-2-3-1 shape. I think that probably suits our players best. Somebody alongside McCarthy. You may look at tonight, and I know nothing other than sort of my own mindset. You might find that someone like Robbie Brady starts, and may start, say, on the right wing for argument's sake, and comes in a little bit narrow. That's something they could look at tonight, particularly being away from home. So you have to find that balance, and there's no doubt James McCarthy has played with MacArthur in Palace, if I'm right, and he plays his best football in that sort of system. But you can't be all out attacking midfield unless you're going to hold on to one of your fullbacks. So even if you look at a club like, say, Man City, all out attack, you'll often see Kyle Walker come into that midfield position when they're attacking down the opposite side, just to give that sort of balance and a little bit of cover. And while Ireland want to be, I think they'll be brave tonight and they'll have a go, you also have to keep the door closed. And it's really difficult to find that balance, and it's not about systems, it's about the players you have, and they would have learned a huge amount from the first two games. That's really interesting, Vinny, because we've had conversations with Dan and Johnny, and obviously Dan would have watched every single Dundalk game over the years, and would have the conversation would have gone, so could you see him playing three at the back? And they're like, no, I don't think so. Like, certainly there's no real evidence that has been in the makeup in the past. And I don't want to misquote either of the lads, so if I have, I'm apologising in advance. But the sense was that, like, Stephen likes to play a particular style and system. It's interesting to hear you say that actually it's far more important that the players are there. Could you see a scenario where we do have three at the back? Because it looks like we're designed perfectly for that. Yeah, of course I can. And when the manager gets time, we'll find a scenario. I think, again, like, I don't want to equate Dundalk to Ireland in any way, shape or form, but when we were at our best, whether it was O'Donnell, Tell, Finn or McElhenney in the number 10 position, our midfield was always 1-1 and a 1. And we had two fullbacks, Sean Gannon and Dane Massey, who just raided, and that's the way Stephen liked to play. But, I mean, if we didn't have fullbacks who liked to raid, or, you know, we didn't have that midfield, we would have came out with different scenarios. It's a bit like people saying Stephen was very attack-minded all the time, but we went to places like Zenit St. Petersburg or AZ Alkmaar, and we were quite pragmatic at times and let them have it. Like, by and large, he's an attack-minded coach 90-odd% of the time, but there's times where, like any good coach, he'll adapt his system, he'll change his style of play, and I wouldn't be shocked to see Ireland playing three at any stage over the next couple of months. But unfortunately, because of the way the games have come, there's no friendlies. It's just straight into competitive games, and you have to do what you have to do. I don't think there's time this week, for argument's sake, to work on a 3-5-2. Not saying they haven't done it, but I don't think there's time for argument's sake to work on it this week. So it's really, I don't doubt he has, particularly himself and all them staff, they have the way about them to find the best system that suits Ireland going forward. At the moment, I think it has to be somewhere between a 4-2-3-1 and a 4-3-3, and until we get a little bit of time to work with stuff from players.
It definitely feels, listening to you, Vinny, that you see Robbie Brady as a potential starter in this Ireland team. Fitness may preclude him from starting tonight, but it definitely seems that the way you talk about that midfield, as well as that option on the right of a front three, that midfield looks like you could get the best out of itself with Robbie Brady in there.
Yeah, I do. I think it's a rib injury he has. So if that keeps them out, the hands may be tied, in the sense of it could be an out-and-out front three. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see, and again, it's just a good feeling, for argument's sake, off the left, Callum Robinson, McGoldrick up front with Aaron Connolly, and say with Robbie Brady, if he was fit, narrow off the right, with Hendrick and McCarthy behind him. So that gives you a bit of the number 10, because if you look at McGoldrick's game, he's not now centre forward who's going to lead the line. He's someone who drops into different positions. Seen him in left full position in the last game, for argument's sake, while Ireland were chasing it. And that's not criticism, that's just his style, that's the way he plays. So we need an out-and-out centre forward. We need to score a goal tonight. A couple of goals probably. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that if Brady was fit. A slight change in the system, but nothing over drastic. Hendrick and McCarthy as the two sitters. can we bring someone like Malumbi into the team? I'm not sure. He hasn't played a huge amount of football. He did play the other day, but came off early, not early, but came off in the second half. So again, it's about who's fit. We don't know, work into the squad, but they've got to come up with something, someone who's going to get goals. And I also look at someone like Long, who hasn't really featured in the first two games, and I think his pacing behind could hurt him. So there's a couple of decisions to be made. Ironically, it's probably good in one sense. Coleman's not there, even though personally I probably would have started him. His form has been exceptional, but it's probably good that noise has gone away of Coleman, Doherty, and they can just focus on the team. But there's big decisions to be made in Ireland's midfield tonight. Huge decisions, because they're quite strong, I think, in there. If they get going, they're normally a possession-based team. They would normally, against Wales, I watched the Wales game a couple of weeks ago, just for some knowledge over there in the qualifying campaign, and it's 67% possession. They went to Israel a couple of weeks ago at 67% possession. That's quite high. Israel, a good side, and drew one also. But there's no doubt that what they're lacking, the two players, particularly their number 6 out of their team, and their centre half. This is a real opportunity for them. And once they get the balance right in midfield, I think we have the players capable of going and having a good result.
All right, Vinny, that was brilliant analysis. Thanks a million for explaining all that to us. Great to have you with us.
Thanks very much.
That's Vinny Perth there, giving us his thoughts ahead of the game tonight. We'll be coming back to that game a little bit later on with Phil and Nathan. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on the YouTube stream, youtube.com/offtheball. We're live, of course, on the OTB Sports app as well. And they're the best places to catch our brilliant Paddy Power Ireland-Slovakia special. It's on OTB Sports Radio today. You can find it on YouTube or on our other social channels. Kevin Kilban, Richard Dunn, Kevin Phillips, Niall Quinn, Damien Delaney and Stephanie Roach talking about Ireland and much, much more. It's on OTB Sports Radio right after we wrap at 10 o'clock this morning. Get that on OTB Sports Radio on the app. Now, I'm delighted to say Ryan McMenamin is with us, the Fermanagh manager. But Ryan, you're kicking your heels at the moment because all inter-county action has been paused after a couple of COVID positives. First off, how is everybody?
Yeah, look, I think everyone's grand, and everyone's well, they're safe anyway. And any of the boys that have been chatting with COVID, few of them have symptoms like they are flu-like, and then other fellas now are, I think they feel 100%. That's the madness of this as well, is that some people can be totally fine with it and others get a right dose, and it's a serious enough dose for anybody who actually does seem to get it. It is. Look, it is, and it's probably what people probably do forget about. Probably it's the outside. Like it's all right me getting it, and I mightn't have the dose too bad, but then it's the outside that if my mother and father maybe have underlying issues, and then that's the worrying thing, and probably you don't think of it at the time, and then once it probably kind of hits close to home, you're probably kind of looking around then, right, who have I been in close contact with, or who have I been there? But look, I think what we have established probably is that it hadn't came from that for monitoring, and it hadn't been spread for monitoring or whatever, and that's probably with the amount of negative results that we're getting back from the majority of the squad. It's great to see that. Yeah, I'm sure that's given you some modicum of comfort in the middle of all this. Like, there's obviously, first off, this is a human story about the people who have it, and as you say, that fear that they might have infected people in their community, because we've all been trying to live with this while at the same time taking whatever precautions are necessary. But you can take all the precautions you want. Somebody coughs in the wrong room, somebody walks in and breathes it in, and you're in trouble. Yeah, look, and I think that's really what's come down. Look, with the Fermanagh squad, we've a very, very young squad. We've maybe 10, 12 college students, and they were probably all back up into college. All of them were called back up in the class, so that had to do with the classes as well. Probably with Fermanagh being the county that it is, that the counties are small. It is a small county, which means that everyone knows each other, and that means we have maybe, for example, we have 5 players living in the one house as well, so up at college as well. So they're all these lads would have came through because it's a small county. All these lads would have probably went to St Michael's College together. They would have played in youth teams coming up on the 15th, so they all know each other, and they're all really, really good friends. So it's only natural when they go to college that even though they're from different clubs or from different areas, they all do live together because they all know each other as probably been friends from Fermanagh, and so that's probably what it's come back to. And again, when the lads are going to class, some of them have face-to-face contact. So with class, look, and you've seen up probably in the north that I think there's 166 students probably, and I think in Queen's University have come positive, and there's halls of residents that have come back that they're all in social isolation. So it's the times we live in. Look, and I have to give thanks probably to the backroom team and to Stephen Jackson, their COVID officer. Probably once we heard on Saturday, a few of the boys were just feeling a wee bit unwell. Look, we got them into self-isolate and get tests booked, and what we did then, look, we just cancelled training. We had training cancelled for the Sunday, we had training cancelled for the Tuesday, and look, and the county board then took the right decision just to call the whole thing off, just to see where we can go. And look, probably the last 3 or 4 days we have been working hard with the PHA up here just to establish when's a safe time to go back. The
PHA is the equivalent to the HSE here, is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Right. And what are they saying at the moment?
Well, probably at the moment, just we're trying to establish, and we're at the minute. Believe it or not, I wasn't at the training on Friday night. I had a league final for my wife's ladies team. I managed them. It was the last game of the last game of the season for that day. And
I hope you always pick her, Ryan. I hope that there's no debates about her place in the team.
No, definitely not. No. So I had that session there. So look, at the minute we're just working with the PHA, and they're just trying to establish the close contacts. But like, I think our doctor and again the COVID officer, we've provided all the documentation to it. You know, and look, and we've took the step that look, we'll take a step back from training, and just to give everyone a bit of breathing space. And look, and basically too, we're to me the safety of the players is of the utmost importance in the backroom team. And the only thing I'm looking at it long term for us is probably going to be preparation. We're no shape to play Clare, because I think I've just been told the hotel in Clare has actually cancelled her reservation because of level 3 restrictions. Now I thought that was weird. So we're no shape to play, and whether even with preparation, even long term, if you look at the Ulster Championship, we do want to play it, but you're looking at the level of preparation. If you're only going to have 2 or 3 training sessions before the Ulster Championship, you kind of have to ask what sort of games is it going to be, and what sort of spectacle and what sort of thing for the sport. And you kind of go, our players going to buy in now. If I'm going to say, look, we're only going to have 2 training sessions before down, I have to be aware of the players. I've Owen Donnelly living in Carryduff. He's just become a father, and do I want to say to Owen, hey Owen, travel down the road for 2 training sessions for a game against Down? I don't. I have to be fair to Owen. I have to be fair to the squad. And we need preparation. We're going to need good time to preparation. And we'll try our best, but the spectacle's not going to be. Spectacles mightn't be great and mightn't be a good advert for football, but at the same time, I don't want the boys to become a circus and kind of going, we're just being rolled out here just to play football, and when we've done no preparation.
What would fix that for you? Is it a black and white scenario? If you don't get the preparation, you shouldn't be asked to play the game.
Well, to me, look, I do know it's a totally new situation. It's a totally new situation with everyone for fixtures, and I know we have to be fluid and know we have to try our best. But there is no answer to it, and I don't know. We want to play the championship game, and we do want this here. I want to put Fermanagh's best foot forward. I want to showcase Fermanagh football what it is, and probably we're not going to get that opportunity. And with it being a small county like Fermanagh, we need senior team to be a flagship, and I'm just aware probably if this was maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking out wrong, maybe I'm going to say if this was a Dublin or a Tyrone and they were in the same situation, would the Ulster Championship match be moved, or would it be accommodated for players? You don't know, and you don't know till any of them counties are in that situation and what goes. But at the minute, look, the most important thing for me is the welfare of the players. Now, I know county managers got a rough deal, and maybe you hear some stories of managers maybe riding roughshod or whatever. But look, to me, whatever it is, if we don't go back to next Sunday, we don't go back, and we'll just try it. But we just have to everyone has to be made aware that probably it's not going to be an even playing field when we go back to the NFL to play the National League games. Does that, if it's not a fair playing field, you can ask yourself, should there be relegation in the league if we're not afforded the same chances as Clare? And Clare have to know if our game's on or off, because Colm Collins is running. He can amend his training session accordingly. There's no point Colm Collins tapering down his team for Fermanagh and not told, because like your training sessions are planned out what sort of sessions that we're going to do, and like Colm Collins would like to know, just out of respect for him and the work he's did down in Clare, he would like to know what's ahead of him. He'll have planned a totally different training session if the game's not on next week than if it is on.
Like it's I think 1 month today is the Down game, so that's your championship opener. Yep. Even that looks like a massive undertaking given the current circumstances. Would you be calling for the GAA to at least cancel promotion relegation in the National League this year, and on top of that push back that Down game as much as possible?
Well, look, with the Down game, look, I know we're constricted with time, and look, we want to see a competitive Ulster Championship, and we want to see a competitive All-Ireland. Look, and we totally understand what the GAA has, the importance that it has in society, and look, and I totally understand, and like I'm not stupid that there is money involved for the GAA, and it's good for the clubs that this money gets involved. And look, I am totally behind it, and I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place of what I want. I want the safety for the players, but then I want the best for the players that they can train, and I'm totally aware that it is a unique situation. Regarding the National League, probably in my idea, it would have been, in my opinion, probably that there should have been no relegation, but the top two teams out of each division got promoted, and if we had 10 teams in Division 1, 10 teams in Division 2, if there was an imbalance from 1 year, we can fix it the following year. Like, we can be a bit more creative. I think in GAA circles we're very adamant that it has to be 16 teams in senior, or it has to be 16 teams in the Talent Cup and 16 teams in Tier 1, 16 teams in Tier. We can be creative. The more teams we have playing in the top level of football, the better every county comes. And I think you probably look back in the early 90s and people say football was competitive and football was going, but that's because there was 16. There was a lot of teams playing Division 1 football. There was 8 teams playing Division 1 football, and like you only had 2 divisions, and it was competitive football. Like people forget Fermanagh when they got to the All-Ireland final. When they got to the All-Ireland semi-final in 2004, they were in an All-Ireland quarter-final in 2003, and they were in a National League semi-final in 2003. So they were competitive. They were playing in Division 1, and I do think the GAA has to look, probably saying, right, or even scrap Tier 2 for 2021 and do the set-up then for 2022, because this is what the promotion, this is the way the leagues have been finished, just more or less to sort out the Tier 1, Tier 2. But look, for 1 year we could have 20 teams in Tier 1 and whatever the amount of teams left then. So.
Yeah, and the other thing about this is, unfortunately, there's probably going to be another couple of counties in Fermanagh's position over the next little while. From seeing this up close over the last couple of days, do you think it is possible for an amateur sport to go ahead safely over the next little while? You mentioned the lads who are in college. You can't really isolate them from that unless their college systems are shut down. You can't really put them into a bubble like professional athletes. Do you have concerns on that level for the way that the GAA players are such present people in the community?
Yeah, look, you definitely have concerns. You don't want to be telling boys when they can go to college or where they can go to work or what they can do. Like I was chatting to one of them, and I said, well, that could end Belfast. He says, but I have to go up for my classes. Like, so I can't stop him from getting his education. Like at the end of the day, when he's finished playing and he doesn't have an education or whatever, he's not going to be looking to me maybe to help him out. It's going to be very, very hard. The GAA probably, if they can, if the only one way around it is that they can provide testing ASAP for the players, and coming in this, and especially coming into the winter months, that where flus and everything is more prevalent. You know, I think you've got to think of that. People will say, oh no, well, should have only got the 5 players down as the 5 players down as COVID, but then if another 5 or 6 are deemed as close contacts, they can't play. Like, if you're deemed as a close contact, you're gone for 2 weeks. But if you're a positive COVID, you're back after 10 days after your thing. So that's the anomaly in the thing. So some of the boys that are close contacts, the boys that are positive COVID, will be back on the training field before the close contacts, even if they've given negative results.
Right, that is a bit of an anomaly. All right, just one other thing. Sorry, go on.
I've learned a lot over the last 5 days myself. We've become expert contract tracers, believe it or not. At the minute, we've been dealing all with that. But look, to me, it's a fluid situation. Look, and sometimes you have to roll with the punches, and sometimes you mightn't get things what way you like. But you have to remain positive about it. All the boys is all right, everyone's all right, their families is all right, and look, and there's a lot of people worse in their situation, and that's what we've been saying to the boys and anyone that have been chatting to. There's people in the country in a lot worse shape than we are, and maybe the homeless, whatever, and people like that there. So we just have to take the positive out of everything, and look, we'll have to become a better team from it, and we'll have to become a closer team from it, and from my work for it. And look, once we get back on the training field, and regardless what it is, we'll just have to give it a lash.
One thing you mentioned as well a few minutes ago, Ryan, is this idea that if Dublin or Tyrone were in Fermanagh situation, there would be moves already happening to postpone or to cancel sections of the league or the championship. That is almost the stark reality of this as well, that like if there is a Dublin, a Kerry, a Mayo or a Tyrone in the football championship that have a similar situation, that is probably when the real red flags start raising from a national standpoint. Like it's a blunt and it's a harsh thing to say, but it might actually be the reality in the end.
It is. Look, and like in fairness, now Croke Park we have been in contact when I think we've made our position clear. And the GPA, I was chatting to Paul Flynn on Monday, and the GPA and also GA have been helping us, and there's no. You can't deny that they haven't been helping us. All of them, Stephen McGeehan, Brian McAvoy, they have been helping us. But we've made our point very clear, and we've made it very clear from Monday past that we're in no position to play the Clare game, and we'll be adamant, and we'll be sticking by that decision. Due to the fact too, we've no accommodations, which is always a point. Like on it, like if some of our close contacts, their self-isolation doesn't end to the day of the Clare game, so that will be fellas not training and then hopping into a car and driving down. But like to answer your question, look, it's a reality of life. There's always going to be big boys and the championship, and there's always that. And look, if that's the way it is, and the bigger the county, and it's like this, it's the same. It's the same in any sport. You look in the Irish League, you look in the League of Ireland, you look in the Premiership. It's just about the big boys, and that's just a fact of life, and that's something that you get used to, but you just keep on battling.
Ryan, in your gut, do you think the game against Down will go ahead?
I do think it will be, and look, we're just going to have to, even with the time, skill and pride, like probably we just have to make it aware. Look, our preparations aren't going to be the best, but we're going to try to make them the best, and we'll go ahead. But I am aware too, probably, like, and you can't deny it, probably, that that there is a talk of a circuit breaker down south and up in the north of the island. So there is a talk there, and when that's going to be, I know that they're talking mid-term down in the south. So that'll be a lockdown, and then in the north of the island, you don't know. Our politicians like to keep us on our toes up here, so we're kind of used to anything going on up here. So we don't know when that. If there's a 2 or 3 week circuit breaker, and I think that's usually at a level 5 level, so that means there will be no sport. So I'm preparing for the fact that we'll be playing down on it, and we're doing backroom team here at the minute, doing prep for it already, and look, we'll try to be the best that we can be for down. But look, we'll give it a go. But my more concern maybe at the minute is we won't be we won't be able to play Clare, and we probably Clare need to know when that game is going to be, and we need confirmation from Croke Park. So
sorry, just to be clear, you think that the right thing to do at the moment is to cancel the Clare game or postpone it, or what do you think is the right thing there?
To me, I probably think it's a postponement. If they want to go ahead, and if they're more or less just going the league on without it, it'll be the integrity of the league gone. I would just probably like them to make a call on it ASAP, so look, we can ease the players' mind, because look, you do have a lot of players, and I'm sure there's with this COVID, there's a lot of blame game, and you kind of have to feel sorry for the players that maybe have contracted it. They didn't go out to intentionally contract it, and now you've a lot of young men probably going, I know I've got a few WhatsApps for them and from government, and they're kind of going, they're asking questions, was it because of me or whatever, or did this done? Like, you do have to think of their mental health, and this being paraded all around the country, you know. And to me, I think the GA's just got to act quick on it and postpone it now, and then so we can draw a line under it, and we can tell the boys, look, this is now where we plan for here now, because at the minute it's doing no one no good. And
if the Clare game was postponed, would you like it played next year before the start of whatever happens, or would you like it played at the end of the championship this year? Or when?
I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead, but you would like it. Probably the best scenario would be, and probably looking at it overall, would be probably starting the league, probably playing the 2 games of the league end of January, and then knowing your league position from them. I think Martin McHugh's made that point, and only when I heard it last night, it did make sense. So you were saying that all the teams then would have a clear run just at the championship and have your one-off championship and walk away. But again, with games being picked on RTE, and for the league games picked on RTE, I can't see the hierarchy and the GAA wanting that there. So.
All right, Ryan, it sounds like you guys are trying to put the best face forward, but at the same time, when you get into inter-county management, this is not what you expected it to be.
Definitely not. One of the players, Paul McCusker, gave me a WhatsApp maybe on Monday night. He goes, he said to me, "You didn't sign up for this crack, did you?" I was telling him no. I says no, I didn't. But look, in one way, it's good that it's not probably. It's good probably for a personal point, maybe that you are managing in a crisis and this sort of thing, and probably what way we come out of it, it'll be a reflection of me, you know, and it's a challenge. And look, I don't think nobody in the inter-county scene or nobody in the club scene have had to deal with something like this here, a magnitude of this here, and even with headquarters and even with getting fixtures and the club fixture people as well. Like, nobody in the GAA has, or any sport has had the magnitude to deal with this. And look, you could take it as a negative, you could take it as a positive. I'm trying to take it as a positive, that even with the players themselves, and even for myself, and probably managing the backroom team and getting training organised for boys and getting trained during the lockdown. Look, if you don't take it as a positive, you're not going to get very far in life. And look, although at times maybe it does drain you, probably when you sit back and think about it and you say, right, I've learnt a lot from this year. I've learnt a lot about myself, and I've learnt maybe that a lot you can get better on. But look, you have to give it a lash, and you have to take the positive of everything. And look, at the same time, all the boys are in good healthy shape at the minute, and all of the boys have to be thankful for that. And as I said, there is a lot of other people in this country in worse shape than deny him, and I'm just thankful for that.
Well, look, it's a fair point to end this on, Ryan. Great stuff with joining us this morning. Keep the flag flying as best you can, and thanks a million.
No problem. Thank you. Hey.
That's Ryan McMenamin giving us some insight into what it's like to manage an inter-county team in the midst of a global pandemic when it seems like a cluster of your team have gone down. So, right, time for the papers.
OTB AM.
A reminder, OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. That's otbsports.com. David Clifford needs to sharpen his elbows. That's advice from Peter Canavan for David Clifford. I'm sure Mickey Hart reading that going, here, listen, don't be giving the lads any advice. Cork City set to be sold to Preston North End's owner for €1. I don't know if we can be expansive with the current Ireland crop. That's Jamie Heaslip talking about what game plan he wants. It was on Wednesday Night Rugby last night. James McCarthy, essential link or Ireland's whipping boy. A bit of both was the discussion on the football show last night as well. Okay, so the papers, the London Times. Read the room, lads. Premier League's chiefs plead to government, treat football fairly and let our fans back as COVID runs rampant right across Europe again. Maybe letting the fans back into the stadium, not necessarily the best time for that. Slovak plans in disarray after COVID withdrawals is the back page headline on the Indo. Sport must keep going even if we reach level 6 lockdown is Neil Francis's column today, and he's making the point that elite sport needs to continue. The Irish Sun, their back page, with the slow, 2 key players out for hosts. Slovakia were last night reeling after losing 2 star players to COVID-19, but there will be no walkover. So I don't know if there was a point at which it looked like we might be getting a walkover. Thursday's Racing Post, Benny de Dieu could tackle new Mayor's Chase as Mullen supports festival switch. And it's safer than a car boot sale. Top owner hits out of Chepstow restrictions. European dreams, all eyes on Euro 2020 qualification for Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland tonight. The Guardian, keeping a good close eye on our friend Dr. Richard Freeman, who claims he missed the WADA small print and says he didn't read the drug rules. This was while he was the team doctor at Sky. You know, it's important in a sport like cycling to be on top of the rules when it comes to drugs. I think maybe you'd get a doctor who'd read the whole thing. We are ready. Kenny keeps his focus as Slovakia hit by COVID blows. The headline on the Mail, and it's fairly similar. Slovid chaos is the Star. Pens no pals is the Mirror. They're talking about penalties. Kenny, we can't give spot kicks away, as I know we'll never be given one ourselves. That's a bit of mind games, I think, perhaps. And Kieran Donaghy was out at the Sky launch yesterday. He's talking about he doesn't think that the timeline for an Ireland final is realistic at the moment. Southgate, my rookies have it all to prove. That's the England team tonight, and essentially similar stuff in the papers today. It's all about the Ireland game. Kenny's new look Republic of Ireland go for broke in Bratislava is the headline on Emmett Malone's piece, and in the Examiner, got for you. Kenny focused amid virus chaos. So, where do you want to go on?
It would have been nice to have got a walkover, wouldn't it?
I think
I mean, if people say, "Oh, we don't want to win against a shoestring Slovakia team," those same people might say, "We don't want to win by a walkover." I do. Absolutely, guaranteed win.
I think that like winning this game and then getting a walkover in the next round, that's the ideal scenario. It's like, so you get the morale boost of the victory and the good performance, and you know all the stuff that Vinny Perth was talking about a bit earlier on when he was outlining how the structure of the team should be. It's another 90 minutes, and then we'll take the walkover and cascade into the finals, which are a joyous outpouring, a coming out party for Europe after the whole continent gets vaccinated just in time.
That would be nice. Let's talk about Dr. Richard Freeman. We should get like a change of evidence klaxon or like some sort of hotkey to play whenever this happens throughout the entire duration of this trial. So yesterday he has now claimed that he destroyed a package of banned testosterone on the same day it was sent to the Manchester Velodrome in 2011. So he has changed his tune somewhat here. He's admitted to poor medical practice, and he insists that he was bullied into making mistakes by Shane Sutton, who is the sort of looming figure in all of this. And a lot of fingers have been pointed at Shane Sutton over the last 48 hours or so. So we've got Simon Jackson on the General Medical Council who's doing the grilling of Freeman this weekend. Jackson said, "I'm going to suggest that you never said that in 3 witness statements or any previous interview that you destroyed it that night. Why is that?" Fair question. Freeman's reply, "I don't have the answer for that. I took it home that night. This is my regret. which I keep replaying again and again. I regret it. I had no thought of an audit trail. So this testosterone is brought home with him. He destroys it when he gets home. He fully denies that this was ever going to be for an athlete to improve performance. That is the key point here, that they're trying to prove that this was used or
frankly,
bought or ordered.
He's shocked. He finds that, what was the word he used? It wasn't embarrassing. Was offensive. He finds it offensive that you think that this testosterone, while he's the doctor of a cycling team, would ever be used for anything other than helping somebody who he has not examined with a condition that he's not quite sure he has. Well, I mean, that's absolutely ludicrous, Eoin.
So, that was put to him yesterday, that there were 3 different possibilities for why you would do this. The first would have been to send it back, 3 different things you could have done with this when it arrived. So the first thing would be to send it back to the firm where he got it. The second thing was to secretly give it to Sutton, who needed it, apparently, according to Freeman, for erectile dysfunction. And the third was to use it on British Cycling or Team Sky Riders. And Jackson then said to him, the third option is to keep it at your home or elsewhere for it to be used on an athlete. And Freeman then says, I find that offensive in every respect. And Jackson's like, what do you mean offensive? Like, is this not what we're here for? It's like, I mean, the whole point is trying to prove this. Like, I mean, the charge has been leveled. This is not a new joke we're bringing out of the pack. Like, fair enough that you're offended that you're sitting here in court. Freeman said, I believe in the WADA code. I introduced anti-doping to the FA in European golf, in football at Bolton Wanderers, to active riders at British Cycling. I have such strong views of sport and drug abuse. Meanwhile, he says, I have to confess, I had no knowledge of, and I did not read a small print on possession of prohibited substances and prohibited methods.
I mean, it's not actually small print is the thing either. Like, it's not, they don't have a smaller bit of print on the actual WADA code where they go, here, listen, if you're a doctor, you don't probably, this is just a small print, don't worry about this. It's like, don't be taking the stuff home, lads.
Yeah. Outside of EPO, I would contend that testosterone is probably the most famous drug you should not use. If you look at a thing called Testogel, what drug do you think is in that? You do not need to be an expert in any print, small or large, to know that Testogel probably has testosterone. But he accepts that it's for a banned drug for athletes. He said that. At the time, I was thinking of Mr. Sutton as a patient, not as a rider or ex-rider. And then, like, there's kind of like been a dark element to what he said every day as well. Yeah. Of Mr. Sutton, I'd heard a story of him knocking somebody out at a training camp in Mallorca. He often threatened me in my job, and that there were people there waiting to replace me. I did what I did to protect my career. So this is kind of like there's a little bit of a triangle going on here between Sutton and Freeman and Jackson, and maybe the Jackson and Sutton part of the triangle will kind of align soon. I'm sure he's going to be up for questioning again, or would at least want to put his story forward. But again,
there's
change of evidence, Claxon.
There's a whole month of this still to come.
Mm-hmm. End of November, I think, is when it's due to finish.
Okay, so it's actually 7 or 8 weeks left of it.
Yeah, the first couple of days have been sensational, to say the very least. It's just what I expected this to be was a hammering down of what we've already heard. But what he's done is completely changed tact here, and that could be because, like, that could be for a number of reasons, and one of them could well be that, like, he all his fears that he's talking about were genuinely real over the last couple of months. We can't speculate about that, but there's no denying that the detail that has come out has just been sensational.
And it's going to continue to come out of that. So if you haven't tuned into this story for the last couple of years, now will be a good time to do a quick refresher on it, because it is going to be very interesting. And who doesn't like a good court case where people are angry with each other, they're trying to defend themselves, they're trying to apportion blame to other parties, and all the while you've got some clever lawyers slowly picking back over the evidence, methodically reminding people that they've said something entirely different on record in the past, and that actually the story, while it may be offensive, is not that ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. I do remember he's written a book since all of this, Dr. Richard Freeman as well. Granted, this was all in the early stages of it. Just the amount of information we have about this case now is extraordinary, and the amount of differing information at this point as well. But yeah, that's the Freeman story. We'll keep you up to speed on that every morning here, because it's just too good to not talk about.
Okay, anything else in the papers today?
Well, like the championship stuff is interesting. Like I guess Ryan McMenamin added a lot of meat onto the bone of how we're viewing this thing over the next little while. We're into the realms immediately now of postponements, and frankly, there is no room for postponement in 2020. And Kieran Donaghy basically makes that point, as he mentioned in the back pages today, that the current timeline just does not look realistic. That's no fault of the GAA, obviously. It's to do with the fact that we're now in this position where things might get worse. If you listen to Tony Holohan yesterday, he is more concerned last night than he was writing the letter to government on Sunday, which means we are still facing a very real threat of going to level 5 at some stage. Going to level 5 in the future, talking about sport alone here, going to level 5 in the future is worse than going to level 5 2 days ago, because that means everything just gets pushed back into next year, basically. If we were in level 5 now, there could be 4 weeks of nothing, and everything gets compressed without National League into the end of the year. Can't do that if level 5 is yet to come in a couple of weeks. And that special dispensation that the GAA are looking for, like, there is no word from government whether or not that's going to happen yet. There is a suggestion that it might, but nobody knows.
Well, look, I mean, Fran was calling for it in the paper, saying that it would be important to kind of keep something on for everybody to do in the darkness of the bleak winter, where, you know, if there's games on under lights, if there's racing on under lights, if there's GAA on under lights, is it really the worst thing if it's manageable and if it's publicly safe to do so, or is it completely ludicrous to be asking for that at that time? I mean, both of these, you can make the argument that both of these cases are true, and you can, I have no doubt, find people very eloquently to make both sides of those arguments, and maybe we should find those people over the coming days to try and tease it out. But people are going to get angrier and angrier as the tensions ratchet up. It was interesting that Ryan McMenamin talked about the circuit breaker around the midterms. This is definitely travelling the culture at the moment, that they're going to let the kids go home for midterm and then they're going to lock down everything after that. And I've heard nobody official say that. It's weird how the kite flying works in Irish society, is that you put the kite out there, it immediately sweeps the country, and the way gets prepared for it to happen. Is that really how we should there not be like this is our strategy, this is why it's happening, this is the science behind it, these are the numbers, these are our potential range of outcomes. 1, we do this, 2, we do this other thing, or 3, we do nothing. And our recommendation is 1. And then it's up to everybody else to go, okay, I've seen the evidence, I've followed the evidence trail, and I've come up to the conclusion that, yeah, okay, you're right, fair enough, or you're wrong on the basis of that. And I also have an argument, as opposed to, well, the WhatsApp group says that they're going to let the midterms happen and keep the kids home after that. I'm like, really? Is that how we're governing the country now? By WhatsApp?
Yeah, or just close the off licenses, of course. That'll save everything.
Close the off licenses. But the brother has a pub, apparently. So, sure, look. 11 minutes past 9, 12 minutes past 9 here this morning on OTB AM. Still to come, we're going to preview the Ireland game in a bit more detail with our own Phil Egan and Nathan Murphy, who's on commentary duty alongside Stewie Byrne for you for that game live tonight from 7 o'clock on Off the Ball. But we're going to take a quick break, and we're back with Cork Gaelic football legend Bríd Stack, who is about to become a full-time Aussie Rules player.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Looking for a football show with a bit of a twist?
Ferguson has a knack for seeing maverick and, kind of creative genius and sort of letting it flow.
Team 33, the football magazine show for the football purists. The very best interviews with the cult heroes of the past, and a look at the cultural side of football. Team 33, live at 9 p.m. every Friday on OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app. OTB.
For Sterling! Raheem Sterling!
OTB live commentary. Never miss the action right here on OTB Sports Radio. Keep up to date with the latest scores on the OTB Sports app. The OTB Sports app. Live score updates straight to your phone.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
And of course, a reminder, OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. It is 13 minutes past 9 this morning, and I'm delighted to say Bríd Stack is with us. Bríd, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Hi, how are you keeping?
You must be unbelievably excited. This is, the whole notion of Irish people going to Australia, it's well established, but at the end of a brilliant, brilliant career, to go off on an entirely new adventure and become a professional sports person, that's amazing.
Yeah, I suppose, look, it all kind of snowballed this year, and I suppose, look, I'm just very fortunate that I'm in a position to go, and my husband is able to go. All the ducks seem to line up this year, and look, it's an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So definitely going to grab it with two hands.
So how did it actually come about in the first place?
So yeah, just a couple of years back, I suppose myself and Cora were talking after a ladies football do, and we were just chatting away, and I was asking her how she was getting on over in Australia, and she just asked me did I ever have any interest in going over, and I suppose at the time I didn't. I knew I was retiring from ladies football. I was hoping to start a family, and I suppose we had set up our own business, Core Supplements, a couple of years back. So we were trying to grow that as well. So I suppose it wasn't in my mind that would have been an option. And I suppose fast forward maybe 2 years, and Alan McConnell, the head coach of the Giants, made contact with me, and I suppose we just put kind of wheels in motion early last year. I suppose thankfully I had a healthy pregnancy. I was able to train throughout it, and I was able to get back to training fairly fast afterwards. So I feel in good health and in good nick. So it's all after coming together, but loads and loads to learn yet, and I suppose loads of organising to do as well in the coming weeks.
Have you been training with the Aussie Rules ball that whole time, kind of secretly trying to do the Conor McKenna trick of soloing it and bouncing it?
Yeah, definitely won't be emulating Conor McKenna anyway. If I master the kick and all the ground balls, I'll be happy enough, to be honest. But I've been training away, I suppose, the last couple of months with Mike Curran. He's over the AFL Women's Ireland here in Ireland, but he's based down in Cork, so it actually worked out great that we're still able to meet up and go kicking. So we meet twice a week, and I suppose just the initial kick, I'd say he was fit to just tell me go home. But I suppose that thankfully he's broken down the basics for me a lot, and he's been very, very patient. And thankfully, I'm starting to get into the swing of it now. All right.
What kind of player are you going to be? Do you know what position you'll be, or all that kind of stuff? Does that get worked out?
I don't. I suppose Alan looked at me initially as maybe a defensive player, so I don't know what position I'll be in. I know a good few of the Irish kind of seem to play around the middle. Just it would suit their skill set. So I'm not really sure. I'm just hoping to stamp my place and make a starting berth.
So when Cora had the chat with you that night at the do whatever it was, did that set an alarm, a little light bulb straight away? Did you go home and say, here, listen, this could be an option down the road, or was it a bit of a slow burner?
I didn't, it was a very, very slow burner, to be honest. I suppose I knew I knew in the coming months that I was retiring. I was very, very content with my lot. I had a lovely career with a remarkable bunch of players. So I was very, very content, with my inter-county career, and I suppose with, what was as close to elite sport as I could have gotten. And I just had the time of my life doing that. So I was very, very ready to hopefully start a family. And thankfully we were blessed with a little boy last year. And I suppose even, after pregnancy, I didn't know how my body would be, and I suppose if I could get all my strength back. But thankfully I've been working away with Colin O'Shaughnessy from Elite Fitness. So I was working with him throughout my pregnancy and afterwards. So he's a right drill sergeant. So I've been working with him and was able to go back training as well with the club this year. So it was brilliant. I suppose I definitely could have availed of another couple of months of training, but the lockdown happened, and that was unfortunate. So I'm definitely training as hard as I can at the moment. When
you were pregnant, was the intention to try the Australian dream, or did it even come after that still?
I suppose maybe it might have been in the back of my head, all right, maybe while I was pregnant. I definitely looked after myself during my pregnancy and made sure I ate well and kept myself fit. But you never know how you're going to react. You don't know what the delivery is going to be like or anything like that. So, I suppose there was a lot of unknowns. But look, thankfully, everything went really, really well, and I was able to get back to training a couple of weeks later. And I felt well enough to get back. I didn't feel rushed to get back. So, it was definitely a full decision on my part, and I was very happy to get back for my mind more so than anything else. And I suppose, look, thankfully I regained my strength, but I'm well aware I've loads to learn, and I'm going into probably a very grueling pre-season as well when we land over. So looking forward to the challenge, definitely, and hoping that I'm up to it.
Bríd, how much did you miss elite sport when you stepped away from the Cork team? Is this a factor as well, just looking forward to getting back into a team of people who want to achieve the best they very can?
To be honest, I suppose when I did retire from Cork, I was extremely happy with my lot. I think we had achieved as much as we could achieve, and you know, every girl on that team was absolutely delighted to step away. And you know, we still remain remarkably great friends and very, very close friends. We're always in contact with each other. So you know, I suppose, you know, that's something fantastic to take away. So I haven't been yearning for elite sport, if that's what you're asking me in the last, you know, 2 years. But this opportunity, I suppose, is presenting a very different type of opportunity. You know, the chance to go into professional sport, and I suppose at this stage of my sporting career as well, you know, it's something I'm very, very grateful for, and I know it doesn't come around too often. So as I said, I'm very, very willing to take it with two hands. And look, I suppose I'm still very driven. I want to see, you know, what I can get out of myself. I'm very competitive, and yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to being immersed in a professional setting and learning so much more. And I suppose there's a lot of life lessons to be learned as well in the next year. So looking forward to all of those.
Has Cora or Yvonne Bonner given you a heads up on the step up that is going to be required, or is it a step up at all?
Yeah, so I've been on to the two girls definitely, and yeah, they assure me that I'd be well able for it. So yeah, I've been kind of keeping in tow with what they're doing, and yeah, so the girls have been fantastic, and they're really reassuring. And I suppose probably I won't know exactly what the story is until I get out there, and there's probably a lot of logistics to be ironed out as well. But all I can do at the moment is train as hard as I can, I suppose, on my own, and then looking forward to meeting up with them and then really immersing myself in it.
I think the only other Cork person to play for Giants is Siddhanta O'Halpy. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so yeah, that's big steps to follow though. So definitely, I'm not sure I'd be in the same bracket as him, but yeah, look, he went over and made a fantastic career out of it. So look, all I can do is do my best, and as I said, I'm just very fortunate that I have good support structures as well coming out with me. So I feel very, very lucky and very fortunate, to be honest. Yeah,
I think you've more All-Irelands than him, so you'll be grand whenever that conversation eventually comes up.
Okay. Sure, grand, so that's fine, yeah.
Sonia O'Sullivan obviously won her silver medal in Sydney after she came back from having babies. So, you know, there's a long track record of Irish women being very successful in Sydney. The other thing that's interesting to me is that, like, a lot of the lads who go over are 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah. The women who are going over are in their late 20s, early 30s, and probably just better equipped to deal with the lifestyle changes and the little bit of homesickness that's coming.
Yeah, I suppose they definitely are. And like I said, I think support structures are vital. And I know a lot of the girls last year, you spoke about Sonia Sullivan having her first baby. I know Katie Heron went over last year, and she has a little 7-year-old boy, and, you know, they just made it work. But I definitely think you do need good support structures. You need to be a little bit maybe more mature to be going over. And I'd say I'm definitely in the more mature bracket anyway. I'd say I've easily got 10 years on some of the younger girls going over. But yeah, I suppose, look, they want girls that have developed their skill set, and you know, they obviously caught their eye playing intercounty, and you know, the girls that have been there and that have done it in the last year or two, or three for Cora, you know, they've proven that the skills are transferable. But, you know, I suppose, look, as I said, look, there's plenty of learning. It's a different ball. It doesn't do what you want it to do all the time. So plenty to learn.
I guess as well, the other thing that this is such a lifestyle change. The weather is, you know, pretty good. We're obsessed with weather in Ireland. We talk about it far too much because we live on an island, but where everybody's going to be very jealous of the good quality weather that's going to be coming back on your social media channels. Is there, and also the lifestyle out there, is there any thought that maybe this is an opportunity to move out there for a bit longer than the one season, or have you given any thought to that at all?
So it's initially one season. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'd say the grandparents will be giving me the curly finger now. To be honest, once May comes, they'll definitely be missing the young fella. So sure, we'll go out for a season anyway, and we probably won't miss the sideways rain too much. So we'll enjoy the sunshine hopefully as well.
Well, Bríd, we wish you the very best of luck. Congratulations. It's a fantastic, exciting journey to be going on. And thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers. It's Bríd Stack there, giving us some thoughts on what it's going to be like to play for a team in Sydney after an amazing career with the Cork Gaelic football team, the Great Western Sydney Giants. She's going to be joining Yvonne Bonner and Cora Staunton there as well. If you want to get in touch with us this morning, 0879 180 180 is the number. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We got the final OTB AM Ireland-Slovakia preview with Phil and Nathan coming first. Here's Dan McDonald on last night's show talking about James McCarthy.
The argument is, do you need someone in with him in that area, and then you have a more creative player ahead?
You used the phrase, and this is a very nuanced piece on McCarthy, by the way, so I would say it's very fair to him and also realistic, but you used the phrase at one stage, unrealistic expectations when it comes to him at times, and we do pitch him as the metronomic passing midfielder who can make Ireland tick, and maybe we don't actually see him do that enough at club to justify those expectations.
Yeah, I think it's part of it. Now, then again, you speak to people who've played with him, and they will say, no, he's good on the ball, he can do it, but maybe just not in the sense that he completely dominates a game in that area. And we know that the intent is there to play and try and control the game, but we know that there's going to be spells in this game where Ireland are sort of not overrun, but that Slovakia will have spells, you would assume, because they've good midfield players. And even against Wales last year, when they were at full strength, and we know that Wales are a decent possession side. Slovakia dominated possession against Wales, so they generally are going to keep a hold of it when they're in play. And this is where some of McCarthy's better attributes are going to be important. If Ireland want Matt Doherty and Enda Stevens to get forward and get across the halfway line, and really impose, there is an element of that defensive midfield player needs to be covering space in behind them. And we saw that even with the Bulgaria goal last month, that he was just, there was that space between Doherty and Duffy, but McCarthy was maybe just a bit slow getting back as well. So it's a big responsibility. It's a big responsibility for him.
Yeah. We've been talking a good bit about James McCarthy this morning. We had a brilliant conversation with Vinny Perth a little bit earlier on. We may as well pick this up now. Phil Egan is with us in studio. Nathan is with us as well. Good morning to you both. Nathan on commentary duty for us tonight alongside Stewie Byrne. Phil, where do you stand on the James McCarthy issue? Is it his fault? Is it the system? Is it a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both, but actually, thinking back to James McCarthy's best performances for Ireland, there was that time where himself and Glenn Whelan were in the team together, but actually McCarthy's best performances were without Glenn Whelan, where he was the main man at the base of that midfield, breaking things up. But yeah, sometimes we do look at what he's not doing rather than what he does do. That because some players that play in the base of midfield spray passes left to right, that James McCarthy's not doing that, or he's not coming demanding the ball on the half turn looking to pick out passes, that he's more of a player that breaks things down. So that's what he's going to have to do tonight. It'll be interesting to see who Stephen Kenny puts in there with him. I think we're all pretty much expecting that Jeff Hendrick gets the nod, whether it's Conor Howrahan or Robbie Brady. I think something that Stephen Kenny obviously has to think about tonight as well is what team he wants on the pitch to finish the game. He's got 5 substitutes. That's something that not many managers get afforded, because obviously this is just something that has come into the game with COVID-19, that he has the option. So maybe that's why he might go for someone like Howrahan to start, because he thinks Brady could offer something more coming off the bench. He might make more of an impact. But going back to James McCarthy, I think I'm surprised. I wasn't sure we'd ever see him in an Ireland jersey again, given his injury history. Obviously got back into the Crystal Palace team. He's now keeping Luka Milivojevic out of the Palace team. So you've got McCarthy and MacArthur that play in it too, which suits McCarthy's game a bit more. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. And my slight concern is the back four, which we know what the back four is going to be, but 3 of that back 4 are used to playing in a 5. And like playing as a fullback or Matt Doherty and then the Stevens and a wing back, two completely different positions. Like I always played as a fullback, but there was a few games where I got to play as a wing back. So much more enjoyable. It takes away a lot of the defensive responsibility.
What does that say about you, Phil? You're like, nah, that defending's for somebody else.
No, because what would happen is if you were a right full, the centre halves were talking to you to basically cover them.
Bossing you, yeah.
Whereas if you're the wing back, okay, you still have to get back, but the
you
main...
You blame somebody else if something bad happens.
Yeah, well, say for example, John Egan plays in a 3 at Sheffield United, so usually obviously he has Basham and O'Connell on either side now. Obviously they've had injuries, but they're the players that are going to cover if he's out of position. Whereas if he's got Shane Duffy beside him and Stevens and Doherty are bombing on, then he has less cover. So that's my slight concern, that Duffy's the only one that really plays in an orthodox back four. Obviously Doherty has joined Spurs, but he's had so little amount of game time that it's, he hasn't really adapted to it yet. So we've talked about, would Stephen Kenny ever play a 5 at the back? It seems like
Vinny Perth said he would this morning. That was really interesting. So we had a brilliant chat with, if people haven't heard this yet, go back and check out Vinny Perth talking to us a little bit earlier on. We put the podcast up separately on the football show stream, so OTB Football. He was saying that absolutely, that having worked with Stephen Kenny is not somebody who will only do the one thing ever, that it's about the players available to him. They played that particular style at Dundalk because of the players that they had available to him. They had a list of number 10s over the years that would allow the team to play with the midfield structure and the back four that they had, asking the fullbacks to bomb on because you had responsible central midfielders. If the Ireland team don't have that, given time to bed in and an opportunity to practice, then we should expect at some point that we will at least try 3 centre backs, 5 at the back.
No, it ticks so many boxes in terms of it gets Doherty and Coleman into the team. This is providing everybody's fit. It then solves the problem of Aaron Connolly and David McGoldrick, because both can play down the centre, and it gives you a bit more protection in midfield. But yeah, this is the problem Stephen Kenny has, that he would have presumed he was taking over in September and he was going to use the Nations League to fine-tune things before a World Cup qualification campaign. But now he has the pressure of this game, where Irish fans are not going to be that forgiving if things don't go well tonight. But Stephen Kenny, it's such fine margins. If Ireland were to win tonight and then finish the job off against Bosnia or Northern Ireland, then Stephen Kenny may never look back. It could just take off, and we could be talking in 2 years about how this Slovakia game was the turning point, and even though it's only his 3rd game.
Nathan, the issue of the number 10 and the midfield, like, it was a really interesting conversation we had earlier, because all of a sudden you're thinking, actually, I can completely see why he's picking Robbie Brady in the team, and also how suddenly McGoldrick fixes the Aaron Connolly issue. If you want to play Aaron Connolly through the middle, you can do that, and then he's your number 9 essentially. Okay, slightly left-leaning, but you're a bit like the manager. Your number 10 is David McGoldrick, and that's a perfect role for him.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was those two as the 9 and 10 tonight. I'm not sure Robbie Brady will play, simply because I'd imagine Stephen Kenny's learned his lesson from the last 2 games, where you need everybody fully fit. And Robbie Brady's played, less than a half of football in the Premier League since the restart. He's had another little niggle. But I would have thought, all going well, both Brady and Hendrick would be certainties to start because of their own relationship, because of the positions they can fill and the energy they bring to the side. So the big decision he faces tonight is, does he stick with the 4-3-3 that, by and large, didn't work, you'd have to say, against Bulgaria and Finland, or does he revert to a 4-2-3-1? That is the big tactical decision that he's going to have to decide on tonight. The huge benefit to the latter is obviously that it gets somebody in alongside James McCarthy. And the problem was twofold probably in Bulgaria for McCarthy. Firstly, the players weren't fit. Callum Robinson said on Monday he was probably at 75% going into those games. So there'll be a different type of energy to the performance for starters, and then you throw in the importance of it. But also, and the concern I would have if they're going with a 3 again, is just the lack of structure and the lack of time they've had on the training pitch together. They've barely had a session this week. Almost a dozen of these players played on Sunday. They came in, they had a light run around, they had a chat, they had a tactical session, but they haven't spent time as a 3, if it was, say, his preferred 3 of Hendrick, Howerton and McCarthy. They haven't spent a week on the training pitch, been drilled into them. And that's what it looked like in Bulgaria. You could tell he wanted McCarthy to be a fulcrum of everything. Get on the ball as often as you can. But Shane Duffy wasn't sure when to give it to him. He was picking it up at times when he shouldn't have. When he did get it, he's looking around. There's nobody within 10, 15 yards of him. These are all the things you need if you're playing that sort of midfield three. You need a whole lot of energy and people to be close together. And I think that comes from organisation. You look at the best teams that play with three in the middle. The obvious one would be Liverpool right now. It's all energy. Fabinho sits at the base, which is exactly what he would like James McCarthy, I'm sure, to do. Raises the question, does he have the energy to get across and cover the full-backs like Fabinho does so brilliantly, generally? Maybe not so much the other night, but generally covers Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, and particularly that game against Arsenal when you watched him. He's across. Does James McCarthy have the defensive know-how to do that? Does he have the legs right now to do it? So that's a reason for putting somebody in. To be honest, I don't know what he's going to do. And I'd imagine he made a decision quite quickly after the last two games, but we haven't seen, it's been a very strange week. Like, we haven't really seen the players at all because they came in, did one light session, and then they were gone on Tuesday. So it does feel as though the 4-2-3-1 would be the wiser one. The lack of Arthur, Malumbi not playing game time probably isn't ideal, so it does mean it's either Howerton or Hendrick in there alongside him. But I would be concerned of just going in with... I think Hendrick plays no matter what. Hendrick will 100% start this game. So
sorry, I thought you meant it as they both play and one goes beside James McCarthy. Who would you be picking as James McCarthy's partner in the two there?
I would go along with Vinny in some ways, with Hendrick alongside McCarthy. It just feels then you're looking at an incredibly attacking and exciting front four of McGoldrick behind Connolly, probably Robinson on one side, and then is Callum O'Dowda fit? I'm not quite sure. Unless you go with Adamida through the middle, Dave McGoldrick behind, Connolly on the left, Robinson on the right.
No. That's where he starts Robbie Brady. You've got 5 subs. Robbie Brady's not match fit. You give him an injection in the ribs. It's a pain tolerance thing, and he plays 45 minutes and sees how he goes, and he gets 55 minutes, and then you bring on somebody. And at that stage, if you're 1-0 up, you probably bring on James McLean. If you're 1-0 down, you bring on O'Dowda.
Possibly. Now, O'Dowda hasn't played any football, so he may suffer for that. And maybe that's what you do. And listen, Robbie Brady, we saw in the game against Finland, he cares too much. Like, he was running around like a headless chicken in that game for large parts, trying to make an impression, trying to do the right thing. He did some brilliant things. He provided a bit of a spark, but also like careless at times, just taking on things that weren't on. So yeah, maybe it is Robinson on the left, Connolly through the middle, McGoldrick just behind, and Brady there. And as you said, Brady sort of tucking in, a good awareness of what Doherty might do up that right hand side as well. But they just need the cover, because like there are questions about Doherty defensively. They're there at Tottenham. We saw them play Newcastle with Brian Kerr on commentary when he's in a one-on-one 50-50 with Joe Linton, and Joe Linton wins it, and Doherty sort of throws his eyes to heaven right in front of the technical area, throws his eyes to heaven, throws his arms in the air, and does this slow jog back, and Mourinho is on the edge of his technical area 5 feet away from him, blasting him to get back. That you get away with that at Wolves because they've got 3 centre halves. You don't get away with it at Ireland, and you don't get away with it at Spurs now either. So it's very difficult to know what to expect.
Just on that idea of playing like a 2 up front with a number 10 behind them, does that impact how we might actually be approaching things in the flanks though? Like I accepted it was disappointing enough when, in terms of how we saw Matt Doherty link up with Callum O'Dowda or with Callum Robinson on the right flank. Stevens and Aaron Connolly were a bit better, but they weren't amazing either in terms of linking up on that left flank. I accepted the full-backs been pushing up and in good positions, but what they've actually been doing in the final third probably hasn't been what we expected. Now, maybe that's just because they're full-backs rather than wing-backs, but I definitely think there's a bit more cohesion that needs to be found on both of those flanks. And if you go to a front 2 with a 10 behind them, you're kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater on that whole plan.
Yeah, and I just don't know if we have, because if you're going with a front 2 and a number 10 behind,
we're not doing that.
You're going with a 3 in midfield, which means you're going with, again, Hendrick, Howerton and McCarthy, and I don't think the full-backs can get forward if that's the midfield 3, because they don't have to
hang on,
cover.
can I just explain that? Owen, who do you think would be that front 2 and a 10?
Well, what Nathan said, it's just, what did you say, Nathan? McGoldrick playing behind
So McGoldrick's the 10 in that role?
It'd be a kind of a withdrawn number 9, really, wouldn't it? Behind Connolly and McGoldrick. Is that what you're saying? Like, that was just in response to what you said there.
I'm saying it's basically a 4-2-3-1. So you'll have, if it's Brady on the right, Robinson on the left, or McLean on the left, and then McGoldrick playing in behind Aaron Connolly.
And
or you play
McGoldrick's
Connolly
your
on the
10.
left, you play Ida up front. So McGoldrick's your 10. Drop him back, as he did brilliantly for Sheffield United against Arsenal at the weekend.
I think actually that makes it, certainly the way Vinny Perth explained it to us, made a lot of sense this morning, I thought.
There's another way. Obviously, if you play the 4-3-3 and you've got, say, OK, we've got Connolly on the left and we'll say a Callum on the right, whether it's Callum O'Dowda or Callum Robinson. But McGoldrick obviously likes to drop. So what that does, if you're the Slovakian defence, you got to decide, do you go with them? If you do, that obviously creates space for Connolly and Robinson or O'Dowda to get in behind. But also, if they don't drop, then McGoldrick has a ton of space on the ball, and we know he's creative. He can pick a pass. So I kind of like, that's where I think the balance works, and when you play 3 in attack, where obviously Connolly and Robinson are both playing centrally at the moment with their clubs, so they can drift in, and obviously they're the 2 players I would like to see in the penalty area, because they're the 2 that are firing goals in. Obviously, McGoldrick took his goal well the other day against Arsenal, but I think tonight is going to be a massive night for Aaron Connolly. I think we obviously saw the potential with him with the 21s. He was the one that got us really excited. Mick left him on the bench for that game in Tbilisi. He came off, and we kind of thought, why wasn't he thrown on earlier? But I think tonight could be the night that he announces himself on the senior stage.
The kiss of death from you and Shane Hannon, both saying, Shane Hannon went as far as saying he's going to score tonight. No pressure now.
I still think he's very raw, and I've watched a lot of Brighton at the start of the season. Listen, his pace getting in behind causes any amount of problems, and I hope he's given that opportunity. He gets those balls where he can actually put the pressure on and stretch his legs. I just find when he's in that central position for Brighton, his runs quite often, he's jinking this way and that way, and he's not getting involved in the game as much as you want. His hold-up play probably isn't quite where it should be just yet. He is very young, and maybe you need a night like this where you become that superstar and you bring all the confidence. But I think there's too often he's just not impacting the game enough. But he's working with a manager who has a lot of faith in him now, who knows him from 21, who should know how to get the best out of him. And like playing through that middle, he does like to drift out to the left-hand side. You would fear that if that does happen, if he starts drifting to the wings, like, is Dave McGoldrick going to be in the right position? Like, that's something you see with Sheffield United all the time, that McGoldrick drops so deep that if the striker goes out to the wing, there's nobody there. There's too much ground for McGoldrick to catch up. So we do need an attacking threat as well.
But that's why Callum Robinson should be. That's why that's a good trio. Like if we stick with the 4-3-3, that's actually, you can see how that would work, because when one drops deep, the other is ready to make the run, and there should be some level of understanding from Callum Robinson about how McGoldrick actually plays and what they're looking for. Look, a lot of this is assuming that we're on the ball quite a lot. The other thing that Vinny Perth said was that Slovakia had 60-odd%, and close enough to 70% possession in both their last 2 games, and that actually there were times when they were with Dundalk that they would go away and they would be pragmatic. So I wouldn't be terribly surprised if this was a Mick McCarthy-esque performance tonight, Phil.
Yeah, but also, I mean, some of that possession, it's sideways passes, and if they obviously don't have their full strength team tonight, Slovakia, so if they're trying to stick to their game plan and play possession, that does leave them vulnerable for pressing. So, I mean, that front 3 that we mentioned, the likes of Connolly and Robinson, would obviously give you that energy to put players under pressure, and that's obviously, the higher up the pitch you dispossess them, then obviously you're straight in on goals. So I think Ireland will be quite happy to let Slovakia have the ball in their own half, but there will be certain trigger points when certain balls are played into areas of the pitch where the Ireland players will be expected to press, and that's where the energy that we were missing in those 2 games in September will be crucial tonight. Matt Doherty obviously did the press conference yesterday, said he was absolutely shattered after those, or during those games. So, it's very hard to implement that system obviously in such a short space of time, but also basically not being able to go full tilt. So Stephen Kenny can now say to his players, right lads, you're up to fitness, I'm expecting full tilt, and do you know what, if you gas, we've got 5 substitutes, you got to let me know and I'll replace you with more energy. So it's going to be very important what he does with the bench, and obviously you have to see how the game plays out, because it's very dangerous to try and hold players back thinking this is how the game might play out, but we don't know, because there is obviously VAR tonight as well, so it's going to just make for a very interesting game. But I'm certainly feeling a lot more confident than I was a few days ago, given the absentees and the Slovakia side.
Yeah, how hard did you celebrate that last night, Nathan?
The news that Skriniar was out in Slovakia. Yeah, I've always been a big fan of Skriniar. I'm surprised he hasn't gone somewhere over the last couple of years, and he is a key to them keeping possession, because he's one of the best ball-playing centre halves around. So it's got to be a boost. Because we're not there and we're not getting a sense of what the attitude on the ground of Slovakia is, if this was an Irish team that were suddenly been shorn of some of our star players because of COVID, we'd be talking about a backs-to-the-wall job, about the players fighting for their lives, about the opportunity that's there in a playoff. And I'd imagine that's how Slovakia are going to approach this, that it's a one-off tie, it's a cup semi-final, and actually it's a bit of a blood and guts game. And that's what I'm expecting tonight. I'm not really expecting the Stephen Kenny style. Okay, I think it'll be an attempt to get the ball down and do the right thing. But he's had no time. He has had no time. This is a bonus for Stephen Kenny, which I think is how he's approached this since the start of, as Phil said right at the start of this, if they can win tonight, if they can somehow qualify, he's flying for the next few years. But if they were to lose, I think people need to realise he hasn't had any time with these players at all to get his message properly across.
Okay. Hang on. You're asking people, not the people. That's what you're asking.
I'm asking.
You're asking people, not what? You're asking people, not the people. People does be people, Nathan. We all know that. Football fans
he's going to get criticism. He's going to get
criticism.
Of course he is. But I think you need to look at it in terms of the overall style. It was always going to be a bit of a long-term project, with signs even in that first game against Bulgaria that things were changing. But this is a game of knockout football where he has barely had a session all week with the players. So I think we need to take that into account. And I think we will end up in a little bit probably in the second half of a old-fashioned Irish performance of getting players fighting for their lives, scrapping it out and trying to get the result.
Shane Duffy is auxiliary number 10.
Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised to see it at all.
I think as well, what you want to see tonight is a team that's proactive and not reactive. And I always felt under Martin O'Neill, where when we went behind, that's when you started to see, it was like, well, where was this energy and where was this pace and urgency at the start of the game? We almost kind of wait for the thing to happen to concede that goal, and then all of a sudden we come to life. So why not start on the front foot? And look, if they have more possession, that's fine. I'm not saying we have to pass them off the park, but also you mentioned Shane Duffy there. We know the threat he has from set pieces, and just looking at Slovakia, they mark zonely from set pieces, so maybe that is something that, if Shane Duffy gets a run, there's nobody stopping him. So it could be the classic Shane Duffy set piece and a few bits of magic in there from players like Aaron Connolly and Callum Robinson, and we get the win, and I'd be happy enough with that.
Well, I think anybody's going to be happy with any kind of win. If we scratch through on penalties and qualify for the Euros by way of a postponement or a forfeiture in the next game, better be a lucky manager than a good manager at this stage of his international career. Talk to me, Phil, though, on the other side of it. If you're Slovakia and you're looking at the Ireland team, what are you saying? The points you were making about them, what points are they making about us, and how are they going to, if they are a team who controls the ball against us tonight and makes us run around chasing our tails?
I think they're looking at space in behind our fullbacks, because as I said at the start, that we've got two fullbacks who are accustomed to going forward, and okay, they come back, but they don't have that massive defensive responsibility. And when you look at Enda Stevens and Matt Doherty play for their clubs, okay, I'm talking more as Doherty now as the Wolves version. Obviously, he has to adapt to life at Spurs, but when they play in that wing-back role, they're pretty much out in the touchline, and they're in advanced positions, whereas now they're going to have to be deeper, they're going to have to be a bit tighter to their centre halves. So if they have those habits of kind of drifting out wide, then there will be space there. And Slovakia will be looking at somebody as well like James McCarthy, who, is more than capable of passing the ball, but maybe he's not always that comfortable doing it. So if he's getting the ball off Shane Duffy or John Egan and he turns, that is what, if he takes that extra touch,
press.
That's when Slovakia will be looking to hit him, and you know, if he is caught in possession, then we're in serious trouble, because you know they're straight in, and that's certainly one area they'll be looking at. Certain players they will have targeted where they'll think, you know, they do press. The way they, obviously the group they were in, Croatia and Wales were in their qualifying group for the last campaign, and it was noticeable against Croatia. They didn't press as much because they would have probably respected Croatia a lot more, being a technically better side than the likes of Wales or us. So they will think that they can get at us and they can dispossess us, and yeah, that would be a slight concern for me, where just don't get caught in the ball in midfield. If it has to go out wide, just do it quickly, and I'm sure that's going to be the message from Stephen Kenny.
Nathan, where do you think they'll attack us tonight?
Yeah, I think if we go with 3 in midfield, they'll definitely look to get at McCarthy. They'll have watched that Bulgaria game and realised, you know, he finds himself quite isolated at times. I think they are going to be trying to shut up shop a little bit here and keep it very, very tight with the players they're missing, with an awful lot of their players not playing much football, with Marek Hamsik over in China and nobody really knowing, it seems, reading little bits about Slovakia over the last few days, that they weren't quite sure what sort of state he was going to be coming back in. So I think they're going to be concentrating a lot on themselves and trying to keep this as tight as possible, making sure they don't, as Phil says, concede from set pieces. But the opportunity will be either McCarthy or the 2 wing-backs. If they can somehow suck Stevens and Doherty forward. It was the one thing against Bulgaria, as much as there was some bright signs in both games, like these massive gaps that Ireland are pushing plenty of men into the opposition half. So if you sit back, there's huge opportunities on the counter-attack from what we've seen, basing it on 2 matches, albeit players not fully fit, Nations League games. Like, that's where teams will see the opportunity now, I think, is actually sitting back against Ireland, letting them have a little bit of the ball in and around the halfway line. And then if they lose it, going on the counter as quick as you can. That's what worked for Bulgaria. That's what worked for Finland. They both got countless opportunities through that. So Ireland need to be very, very careful. You can't commit that many men forward if you're not going to keep a hold of the ball.
Dave B comments says, I love Vinny Perth's analysis, very detailed. Ireland win on penalties, another the nation holds its breath moment, not COVID related finally. Out on a whimper
we haven't
tonight.
had a penalty since we haven't had a penalty shootout since 2002.
Can you honestly pick me 5 penalty takers for Ireland where you would be very confident that they're going to score?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Phil, because I've been doing my penalty research over the last 24 hours.
I didn't know at this point.
Matt Doherty last night said, I've been practicing penalties for the last 2 weeks. Put me in, boss. Yeah. Matt Doherty, from what I can tell, hasn't taken a penalty since 2012 when he scored for Bury against Southend in the second round of the FA Cup. So, but Matt has put himself forward. Shane Duffy was playing for Northern Ireland the last time he scored a penalty. For the Northern Ireland under-19s in Bosnia 11 years ago. Egan, Stevens and McCarthy never taken a penalty. Conor Howerton used to take them all the time for Barnsley, but he missed his last one in 2016. Jeff Hendrick never taken one. It gets a bit better though. Dave McGoldrick was Sheffield United's penalty taker in the Championship, but he missed his last one a couple of years ago and never got back on. James McLean and Shane Long both scored penalties the last time we played Slovakia in a friendly. So if they're on the pitch, you'd imagine. Robbie Brady used to take penalties. He obviously scored his last... he scored that goal against France. So you'd imagine if he's on the pitch, he would take one as well. Aaron Connolly, never taken one in senior football, but he did score against Slovakia for the Irish under-19s.
Ooh, I remember Connolly.
From a penalty.
Didn't Connolly miss a penalty for the under-21s in that Sweden game away from home? Sorry,
so he's taken 4. He's taken 4 that I have records of, and he's missed 3 of them. But the one he scored was against Slovakia.
That's not a good record.
Has Darren Randolph taken one, Nathan?
Sit down. It's okay. Don't worry about this. We've got you.
Well, I was before the last game, the home game against Finland. You end up going down these wormholes when you start on stats, and I cannot find. And if there's a listener who can correct me on this, it's not relevant for tonight. But there's no record ever of an Irish goalkeeper saving a penalty at Lansdowne Road, ever. It's just never happened. But Darren Randolph obviously did save one this time last year against Switzerland in the game, which was a bit of a nightmare. So I think Randolph is fairly decent on that side of things, but we don't have a lot of players who are taking penalties.
Jack Byrne?
At club level. Jack Byrne, obviously, if he was on the pitch, if he makes the squad, will be in there. And Adam Ida, when he scored that hat-trick for Norwich against Preston in the FA Cup, the last of his goals for the hat-trick, was a penalty.
Phil, we're going to let you go now, but before we do, give us tomorrow's headline today.
I can't come up with a quirky headline because my brain's not functioning right now. But I actually think Ireland will get the job done within 90 minutes. So maybe they'll go with something like, can we do it? You know,
yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Something simple like that.
It'll be either, here's to you, Mr. Robinson, when Callum scores the winner, or if it's Aaron Connolly puts us in front, Adam Ida comes off the bench and scores the winner, it'll be Kenny's kids are all right.
Or if Connolly scores the winner, which myself and Sheahan are predicting, King Con.
Oh yeah.
Or it'll just be disaster. Black Cats, disaster.
A long winter.
It didn't go according to plan.
Phil, good stuff. Thanks for that. Francis, I'm a bit surprised that Ireland are favourites to beat Slovakia. I think they weren't until the news came through of all the players that Slovakia are now not going to be able to select because of COVID. Kevin says, I think 3 at the back would be a good choice because you can play Doherty as a wing-back. He's played that at Wolves and scored goals and set them up with Egan and centre-back. And Steve as a left wing-back and have more options in midfield. I think we all think that we have 2 good wing-backs and we have 3 good defenders and probably loads more who can fill in if injuries happen. And that might be something that allows our best midfielder to thrive. So it was really interesting hearing Vinny Perth say everything is on the table on the basis of the players that are available when he was talking about a little bit earlier on. Stuart, I think, has sent us the most Irish Ireland supporter football tweet of all time. Keep it tight for the first 20 and see what they're about. No need to start off with wing-backs. He can change that during the game depending on how we settle. Whatever you do, don't take a risk. Keep it tight.
See what they're about. What are Slovakia about? That is a thing that will become apparent after about 20 minutes or so. Like, I mean, just to go back to the question I put to you a moment ago, Nathan. Like, I mean, the instant reaction to last night's news around Slovakia is to say, God, it's terrible, and we'd prefer a level playing field. But outside of Marek Hamšík, they are missing their 3 most recognisable players. Like, this is up there, if not a more significant setback for an Ireland opponent as Gareth Bale missing in Cardiff 3 years ago, is it not?
Yeah, because it's right through the spine of their team as well. And it does increase the pressure a little bit because you're taking out such a talented side that, the odds have already swung on this. So, yeah, there is no excuses. I think going into this, we probably thought it was a 50-50 game away from home, whereas now when they are missing so many players. But I'd imagine they're going to close ranks. They're going to do those traditional things and say, this is still that opportunity that we have to go and get ourselves to a playoff final. Let's keep it tight. Let's keep it very close. I'd be interested to see if this game is reflective of what we've seen from the rest of football since the restart. Like, maybe it ends up being a little bit more open. Like, the one thing when you watch Ireland is we don't create many chances. It's something Stephen Kenny has pointed out a few times that, like our starting 11 tonight are going to have scored very few goals between them in all likelihood. Probably less than 10 between the entire starting 11. But Stephen Kenny would say, but they're not missing chances. They're not actually creating chances. So is there shackles are off, no crowd in the stadium, energy levels are right? Are we going to see something like we've seen in the Premier League where players are taking a few more chances? Players are... Callum Robinson in those positions where he scores against Chelsea can now do that in a green jersey as well. So maybe we get a slightly different game than we're used to in international football, because I'd imagine the vast majority of predictions tonight in the papers are 1-1 or 1-0 or 2-1 either way. It'd be great to get something different. It'd be great to get a game that actually gets us excited about Irish football. And there's a big opportunity here with the way of the world right now, and I think the general state of depression that the entire country is in, for the Irish team to step up now and have a final to look forward to next month in Bosnia or in Northern Ireland would be a huge thing for this group of players, and will give them an opportunity to sort of get themselves front and centre that they haven't had for quite a while.
It's the biggest sporting night of the year, and hopefully the second biggest sporting night of the year. And given the week that we've had, I mean, it would genuinely... it would lift the mood of a lot of people anyway. Like, I hate that phrase of like the nation and all that, but in terms of lifting the mood of some people, it will actually have a material impact.
Yeah, come on, it's like, yeah, no, you're right. It's trite, it's hokey, but it's true.
Yeah, it kind of is. Like, I mean, like I don't know. It's especially if it's back-to-back wins. And
so what? Life is hokey, said Anthony Hopkins.
All of a sudden, we might have something to look forward to next summer. Like, even if it's behind closed doors, like even if I don't know, we're still living in a world of social distancing, and it's still a massive thing to look forward to next year. We don't get these too often. It's like nobody needs telling how massive this is, and still it'll be in an empty stadium over there. So you will have the usual weirdness that goes with these empty stadium games.
Yeah, I did wonder, was that part of the reason for the sort of what feels like a very low-key build-up? Obviously, with such a crazy weekend of Premier League, that dominates probably into Tuesday. There's nobody working over at the match, so you're not getting any sort of sense on the ground. There's no supporters there. But also, what I do feel it would be a boost to everybody for Ireland to win. Ordinarily, we'd be planning. Like, we'd be thinking, where are we going next summer? Where are we getting to Bilbao? You know, booking the flights. Whereas that's not there. I don't think anybody realistically feels that we're going to have a packed Aviva Stadium next summer for these games, unfortunately.
The Basque Country has more Michelin stars per capita than any other part of the world. Think of all the stuff that we're missing out on here.
I remind myself every day of all the things I'm missing out on, Ger.
Well, that's like top of my list right now today. Right, it is 10 o'clock. Nathan, good stuff. Give me your prediction.
Ireland 2-0.
Right, that will be very, very good indeed. You can hear the game live this evening on Off the Ball on News Talk. You can get that on the OTB Sports app. But that is our lot today. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good mornings. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. If you want more good stuff, stay tuned. Get onto OTB Sports Radio. It's on the OTB Sports app. You just click the radio button at the bottom, and we've got 3 hours of goodness coming your way. It's our Paddy Power Slovakia against the Republic of Ireland special. Kevin Caban, Richard Dunn, Kevin Phillips, Niall Quinn, Damien Delaney, Stephanie Roach talking Ireland, and much, much more. It's on live. You'll also get it on our YouTube and social channels as well. At 1:30 today, a live Golf Weekly. State of the Union is Michael Cheika and Andrew Mertens in conversation with Keith Wood. Back from kind of the start of the pandemic and what was going to happen with rugby then. Things haven't changed that much. They certainly haven't got any better. And then our retro panel today is leaders, captains and managers with Kenny Cunningham, Mark Poland and Michael Foley. And Barry Ryan, author of The Ascent, is this week's OTB Gold on Thursday. If you don't have the OTB Sports app, get it. Search OTB Sports in either of the app stores. We'll see you tomorrow. Best of luck.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made